After the bus hijacking incident at Eden Academy, Anya, Becky, Damien, and Bill are awarded a Stella Star for their courage during the crisis, instantly making Anya more popular among her classmates. But as peace returns to Eden, trouble brews in the shadows. A mysterious mole has stolen classified Westalian documents, putting every wise agent in Ostania at risk, including Lloyd. As suspicions rise within the ranks, no one can be trusted. How will this jeopardize Operation Strix? And who is the traitor hiding among them? Let's find out. The bell at City Hall rang, signaling the end of the workday. Their chief cheerfully told the staff that they'd done well, and they responded in kind, wishing him a pleasant evening. It was exactly 5 o'clock, yet there were still a few who hadn't finished their work. Camilla sat at her desk, frustrated as she continued typing. She grumbled about the mountain of paperwork still left to do, and Millie, sitting nearby, sighed in agreement. Their chief, already at the door, wished them good luck with their overtime before leaving with a colleague who invited him out for drinks. Camilla could only glare at their backs as they left. Seeing her irritation, Yor approached and softly said that if she wanted, she could stay behind to help her finish the work. Nearly in tears, Camilla called her an angel, genuinely touched that she would offer to help. Yor reminded her that she still owed her for teaching her how to cook, after all. Camilla, admitting that was true, said she still had a debt to repay. Millie turned to Sharon and asked if she could stay and help as well. Sharon groaned that she was already tired but eventually agreed to help too. So, even past 5 o'clock, the 4 women stayed in the office, typing diligently. As they worked, Sharon glanced over at Yor and commented that she'd become a lot chattier lately compared to before. Startled, Yor immediately apologized, saying she didn't mean to bother anyone. Sharon told her it wasn't a bother at all. That simple exchange made Yor pause. She realized Sharon was right. In the past, she had always avoided getting too close to people to keep her identity as an assassin hidden. It felt strange, and if anything, she had more to conceal now than ever before, especially her fake marriage. Sharon then brought up that ever since the bus hijacking incident, she'd been wanting to ask how Yor's daughter was doing. Yor smiled and replied that she'd gone back to her usual energetic self, though in truth, Anya had never really stopped being energetic. Sharon said she was glad to hear that, only for Camilla to interrupt and tell them to talk less and type more. Sharon rolled her eyes but went back to work. By the time they finally wrapped up, it was already 7:22 p.m., so Camilla and Millie cheered, relieved to have finished everything at last. Yor stood up and said she would be heading home. Millie sincerely thanked her, saying she had helped them more than they could have asked for. Sharon, clutching her stomach, admitted she was starving and suggested they all grab dinner on Camilla's tab. Camilla scratched her head but agreed anyway. When Sharon asked if Yor wanted to come too, all 3 were surprised. She asked if they were sure, and Camilla shrugged, saying it was fine. Millie, a bit surprised herself, realized it would be the first time Yor ever joined them after work. Sharon called the restaurant to reserve a table. Meanwhile, Yor thought to herself that this was a good thing. Spending time with others was an important part of maintaining her image as a normal person. She told them she just needed to call her husband to say she wouldn't need dinner at home. As Sharon confirmed their reservation, Camilla groaned that she even had to treat Yor too. Maybe she should have just gone home for dinner instead. A few moments later, the 4 of them headed straight to the restaurant. Camilla was clearly drunk, her cheeks flushed as she rambled on about how she always told Dominic that he needed to be cutthroat if he ever wanted to get ahead in life. Sitting beside her, Yor, already tipsy herself, nodded in agreement, though she took the phrase a little too literally, saying that cutting throats really was necessary if you wanted to take someone's head. The others stared at her, half amazed and half alarmed. None of them had ever imagined they'd live to see the day Yor got drunk. Yor insisted that Camilla was just as drunk as she was, while Millie was scolded for letting things go that far. She argued that she had only invited Yor for 1 round. Then Camilla suddenly leaned in and slurred out a question, asking how things were at home, whether Yor and her husband were doing all right. The question caught Yor off guard, while Millie immediately perked up, eager to hear what she called the steamy details of the Lucky Ducks. Blushing furiously and stammering through her words, Yoor said that they had a little daughter, so things like that weren't really possible. Millie giggled and argued that having a kid shouldn't stop a couple from being all kissy-kissy, asking Sharon if it wasn't the same for her. Sharon, without missing a beat, said that she and her husband were never the kissy-kissy type to begin with. Yoor tried to explain that Lloyd worked hard to provide them a comfortable life, but Camilla groaned and said no one cared how comfortable they were, that this was a gripe session, so she should start complaining. The truth was, Camilla wanted her to admit that her marriage sucks. Millie, for her part, just wanted to say she should dump her husband. But Yoor shook her head and said she had no complaints whatsoever. She thought carefully about her husband. Lloyd cooked for her, took responsibility for things around the house, even picked up extra food for Bond just in case. He helped her with her city hall paperwork, paid the gas and phone bills, and since she worked so hard, he usually took it upon himself to do the cleaning. Whenever she overworked herself, he simply told her to relax and enjoy a hot bath. So no, she truly didn't have a single complaint. Camilla suddenly stood and accused her of lying. That couldn't possibly be true. Millie agreed. There wasn't a single man alive who was that perfectly flawless. That realization made Camilla gasp and conclude that maybe it was a marriage scam. Maybe Lloyd was deceiving Yoor. Millie nodded in agreement, saying exactly what she had been trying to express all along. Yoor should leave him before he took everything she had. Yoor's eyes widened as she protested that it wasn't like that at all. Deep down, she couldn't help thinking that if anyone was deceiving the other, it was her. Then she hesitated, wondering aloud if it was normal for people to have gripes about their partners. Camilla answered firmly that yes, absolutely. It was a hard yes. Millie added that the lovey-dovey stage never lasted forever. Sharon agreed, saying it was even more normal once you started living together. Camilla then shared her own example. When Dominic showed up 20 minutes late for a date and just laughed it off, she felt like killing him on the spot. Sharon said she felt the same whenever her husband wasted money or kept making lame excuses. Millie recalled how her partner once bad-mouthed everything she cared about, and in that moment, she wanted to stab him right through the heart. Yoor stared at them, horrified and fascinated all at once. In her mind, she wondered what this was, how dating and marriage seemed to turn everyone into assassins in their own right. Why hadn't the shopkeeper told her that marriage would do that? Was the only strange thing about her that she'd become a killer before getting married? Yoor silently debated what to do. Should she tell them the truth about Thorn Princess? Even in her drunken state, Yoor tried to steady herself. She knew she had to act normal, just like everyone else who apparently turned into killers after getting married. So, without thinking, she suddenly blurted out that sometimes she also wanted to kill Lloyd. She said she was absolutely filled with murderous thoughts. Camilla, intrigued, leaned forward and asked her to give an example. Yoor froze, panicked, and scrambled to think of something. After a moment, she said that she actually wanted her omelet to be sweet, but Lloyd always worried that Anya might eat too much sugar, so he never made it that way. The truth was, she didn't really care about it that much, but it was the only thing that came to mind. Camilla stared at her in disbelief. That was it. That was her gripe. Food was important, sure, but that was not what she was expecting to hear. Millie looked just as shocked, wondering aloud if Yoor seriously wanted to kill her husband over that. Maybe she should have her blood pressure checked. Sharon sighed and said that if her husband was kind enough to cook for her, she should just eat it with gratitude. There was no need to make up stories just to fit in with everyone else. But Yoor insisted that it was true. She said they fought and stabbed each other all the time, just like any normal family. The three women froze at that, then told her flatly that no, that wasn't normal at all. Still, Yoor nodded firmly and said that her point was simple. She loathed everything about Lloyd. She was full of murderous intent. Camilla sighed and muttered that yeah, sure she was. Because of their reactions, Yoor realized that what she was saying wasn't working. If she couldn't convince them, they might start to grow suspicious of her, and if that happened, there was a chance they could report her. To keep her cover, she reached for her drink again, gulping down more alcohol to find the courage she needed. Sharon noticed this and told her to take it easy, warning her not to overdo it. But Yoor, hiccuping between breaths, grabbed the bread knife from the table and mumbled that she'd be right back. The others watched in confusion as she stumbled away. Later that night, Yoor found herself standing before the shopkeeper. He looked at her, bewildered, as she asked for permission to kill her husband for the sake of saving her marriage. Still swaying from the alcohol, she insisted that it had to be done. The shopkeeper thought for a moment, then replied that if it would somehow help make the world a better place, then he supposed he'd allow it. And with that, Yoor, now as the Thorn Princess, stood before Lloyd with the bread knife she'd taken from the restaurant still in her hand. Lloyd stared at her calmly, remarking that he considered wanting to kill someone over an omelet to be rather abnormal behavior. But Yoor argued that it wasn't abnormal at all. She was just an ordinary woman who had to kill him so that no one would ever discover that she was, in truth, a killer. The two clashed violently. Anya shouted at them to stop fighting, promising that she would eat the sweet omelet if they would just make peace. But in reality, Yoor was simply standing by the restaurant's doorway. The waiter stopped her before she could step out, politely but firmly explaining that customers weren't allowed to leave with the restaurant's cutlery. Embarrassed, she shuffled back to the table, clutching the knife as tears welled in her eyes. She sobbing that she couldn't do it, that killing was wrong. In her mind, she knew the shopkeeper would never truly give her permission for something like that. Her co-workers sat in stunned silence, watching her cry for a moment before bursting into laughter. Sharon asked if she was just playing along as a joke, while Millie giggled that she was absolutely hilarious. They reassured her that it was fine. They accepted that her marriage was just one big non-stop love fest. Yoor quickly denied it, saying that wasn't true at all. But the teasing continued. They told her to go back to her love nest for another perfect romantic night. Camilla smirked and said they all knew she couldn't wait to get home and cover her husband with kisses. Yoor blushed furiously and stammered that they didn't do things like that. Millie teased her further, asking if they didn't even share a welcome home kiss, and Sharon added if maybe they at least took steamy baths together. But Yoor, on the verge of tears, kept repeating that they didn't, denying everything as her friends cooed at how adorable she was when flustered. Sharon eventually paused and said they were just joking, but explained that a simple welcome home kiss was perfectly normal. Camilla nodded in agreement, adding that even when she had complaints about Dominic, they still did it. Millie chimed in that it was totally normal, something every couple did. Yoor stood there speechless, her thoughts spinning. The only thing echoing in her mind was what they had said about the normal welcome home kiss. Sharon called for the bill so they could all head home. A few moments later, Yoor left ahead of the others, still lightheaded and dazed from the alcohol. Camilla, watching her stumble away, wondered aloud if she would actually go through with it. Millie laughed and bet 20 pence that she wouldn't. Sharon, however, sighed and said they might have teased her a little too much. Still, there was something about Yoor, something so pure that it was almost embarrassing. They all agreed she was more fun to be around than they had expected and decided they should definitely invite her out again next time. That night, Yoor finally returned home. Lloyd greeted her at the door with his usual calm tone, welcoming her home and asking if she had enjoyed herself. Inwardly, he felt a quiet sense of relief seeing that her relationship with her co-workers seemed to be improving. Yoor, still flushed, managed to murmur that she was home. But as soon as she said it, the memory of what her co-workers had told her about the normal welcome home kiss came rushing back. Her face turned bright red. Lloyd, noticing her strange reaction, couldn't help but wonder what was going on with her. As Yoor stood there, her gaze locked on him, her thoughts swirled with confusion. Welcome home kiss, she repeated in her mind. Welcome home kiss. Meanwhile, Lloyd assessed the situation and decided this wasn't a good time for conversation. Yoor, trembling with a chaotic mix of drunkenness, embarrassment, and emotion, looked ready to explode. Her mind spun until she completely short-circuited, and before she knew it, she lost her balance and began to fall. Fortunately, Lloyd caught her just in time. Holding her steady, Lloyd noted that she must have drunk quite a lot. But as their faces drew close, Yoor's heart raced wildly. In her dizzy state, she panicked. Was he about to kiss her? There was no escape now. She braced herself, ready to fight if necessary. But then her assassin instincts kicked in. She realized that if she moved carelessly, she might accidentally hurt him. She might even kill him by mistake. Determined to avoid that, she forced herself to calm down. Then, in a sudden and bewildering motion, she performed a graceful backflip right out of Lloyd's arms, landing unsteadily on her feet. Lloyd blinked, utterly stunned by what he had just seen. He asked what on earth she had been drinking to get this drunk. Yeor, flustered and near tears, apologized over and over, calling herself abnormal. Anya, half asleep in her room, muttered to herself that her parents sure were noisy whenever they did their kissy-kissy stuff. The next morning, Yeor finally woke up. Her eyes were still hazy with sleep when the memories of last night hit her all at once. Though her recollection was a little blurry, she couldn't help but wonder if she had made a complete fool of herself in front of Lloyd. Her face turned red as she thought about it, and she sat up in bed, panicking about what to do now. How was she supposed to face him in the living room after all that? Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Lloyd had already prepared breakfast. He reminded Anya to hurry up since she still needed to get dressed, telling her to remember that she had a play date with the Black Bell girl that day. Anya, beaming with excitement, called it her zoo day with Becky. A few moments later, Becky arrived, practically throwing open the forger's front door in excitement. Martha, clearly alarmed, scolded her for doing that, but Becky simply greeted Anya cheerfully, then immediately turned her attention to Lloyd, saying that an even more important good morning was for him. Lloyd smiled politely and greeted her back, while Anya asked how she was doing. Becky, trying to make small talk, asked what Lloyd was having for breakfast and wondered aloud if he'd like to join them, since she had told their chef to pack a bagged lunch. Martha quickly apologized for Becky's forwardness, but Lloyd replied that it was perfectly fine and even thanked her for taking Anya. Becky was about to make another request, but Martha gently urged her along, taking her out the door. Anya waved and told her papa to come home soon, but Lloyd reminded her that she was the one going out, not him. Once they had left, Yeor carefully walked out from her room, trying to sneak in unnoticed. Unfortunately, Lloyd spotted her right away and greeted her with a calm good morning. Startled, she quickly returned the greeting. Lloyd then commented that she seemed to have gotten plenty of sleep and asked if she was feeling well rested. But instead of answering directly, Yeor bowed her head and apologized. Lloyd thought to himself that she must have drunk too much last night, which isn't like her, but perhaps she had simply enjoyed herself too much. Unless, of course, there was another reason behind it. Meanwhile, Yeor recalled what her co-workers had told her, that it was normal for people living together to have gripes about each other. She wondered if Lloyd was secretly complaining about her oversleeping. Maybe her friends had been right all along. Determined to appear normal, she resolved to have a gripe about him too. On Lloyd's end, he began to suspect something else entirely. Maybe she had drunk so much because she was unhappy or dissatisfied with him. Judging from her behavior now, it seemed possible. Perhaps it was best to ask her directly. So, with careful words, he told her that if she had any concerns about their life together, she shouldn't hesitate to bring them up. Yeor was caught off guard by his openness. It's true, she thought. Her inability to express any gripes has now become his gripe. She hesitated, unsure how to respond, before finally saying that she wasn't quite sure how to put it, but that she had a gripe about everything. She thought about saying something vague to buy herself time. Lloyd, puzzled, asked her to clarify what she meant. She said she simply wasn't satisfied with their life together. And just at that exact moment, the front door opened. Yuri stepped in with his usual cheerful grin, announcing that he had dropped by for an early morning visit. But when he heard what his sister had just said, his smile vanished instantly, his eyes widening in pure shock. Yuri immediately pointed a finger at Lloyd and called him bastard, demanding to know what he had done to his sister. Lloyd's expression twitched in irritation. Of all times for Yuri to show up, it had to be now. Yeor, equally startled, asked why he was even there in the first place. Hadn't he just been hit by a truck and injured his shoulder recently? He was supposed to be resting at home. Yuri brushed it off with pride, saying that his recovery had been miraculous the moment he heard his sister's voice over the phone. But, more importantly, he reminded Lloyd that he had already warned him. If he ever made Yeor cry, he would do something so terrible he couldn't even bring himself to say it out loud. So instead, he simply declared that he would be very upset. Yeor quickly tried to calm him down, saying it wasn't like that at all. In her mind, she thought back to what her co-workers had told her, that it was perfectly normal for couples to have gripes with each other, so she had only wanted their marriage to look normal too. But there was no way she could explain that to Yuri. Yuri pressed her to explain what she meant, urging her to say it clearly so he could punish that ne'er-do-well Lloyd himself. Then, muttering under his breath, He told himself that if Yeowar stayed angry long enough, she might finally leave Lloyd, which was what he had wanted all along. Lloyd then pointed out that he had just said that thought out loud. Determined, Yuri declared that he was going to get her sister out of that marriage right now. They would file for divorce immediately. Yeowar protested in panic, saying they weren't getting divorced. Lloyd, watching the scene unfold, thought grimly that Operation Strix had just taken a dangerous turn from a completely unexpected angle. Still, if Yeowar herself was insisting on maintaining their fake marriage, then there was a chance to stabilize things again. He decided to take a careful approach, asking if she had been harboring resentment toward him for a long time. With a calm smile, Yeowar replied that she hadn't, just since yesterday. Lloyd froze, taken aback by the blunt answer. Yuri, on the other hand, exploded again, shouting and demanding to know what Lloyd had done to his sister yesterday. Yeowar, flustered, kept insisting that he hadn't done anything. Inside, Lloyd's thoughts raced. It deeply concerned him that Yeowar had suddenly developed such a significant grievance against him out of nowhere, even though he hadn't done anything at all. This was bad. If her level of frustration was already this high, it would be difficult to repair. But as Twilight, he forced himself to stay calm. There had to be a reason behind it. He mentally replayed the events from yesterday, trying to find the cause, but nothing came to mind. They had only spoken briefly in the morning and barely interacted after that. The only other possibility, he thought, was that she might have learned something while drinking with her co-workers. But he hadn't had any direct contact with them. So could she somehow have discovered his true identity through Eastern counterintelligence? No, that was too far-fetched. He stopped himself. He couldn't afford to jump to conclusions. Yuri glared at him, deadly serious, and said that regardless of what he had done, Lloyd needed to apologize to his sister. Lloyd silently agreed that, given the situation, Yuri had a point. The best way to de-escalate the tension was to accept some blame, calm the accuser, and gather information that could help him fix their relationship later. So, he looked at Yeowar and apologized. But Yeowar immediately told him to stop. The last thing she wanted from him right now was an apology. In her mind, all she had ever wanted was for them to have normal gripes like other couples. Lloyd, however, was baffled. She had rejected his apology, meaning the problem ran deeper than he thought. Behind them, Yuri fumed, accusing Lloyd of trying to escape accountability with a half-hearted sorry, calling him a flippant louse. Lloyd, in his mind, told him to shut up. Lloyd said he understood. She wanted him to show contrition through his actions, swearing he would not let her suffer like that again. Yeowar snapped that that was exactly the problem. Why wouldn't she be allowed one small gripe? Lloyd was bewildered. What was really wrong? Yuri interjected that Lloyd Forger was precisely the problem, but he was told to shut up. Yeowar begged him not to interfere, that this was a marital matter between her and her husband. Yuri was taken aback to hear the word marital coming from her mouth. He sank onto the couch, winded, and kept turning over thoughts about Yeowar and her husband, refusing to accept that he was standing in the way of them. Meanwhile, Lloyd reminded himself that Yuri was with State Security Service and that this had to be resolved quickly before Yeowar said something that would expose their fake marriage. The phone rang and Yeowar hurried to pick it up, answering and identifying herself as Mrs. Forger, which made Yuri bristle. She said the call was for Lloyd from the hospital. When he answered it, he was told there was a patient emergency, chart number 1399, and he had to leave immediately. Lloyd hung up and apologized since he had been called in for an emergency. Yeowar worried that it sounded grave, while Yuri was pleased at being left alone with his sister. Yeowar, however, saw an opportunity to manufacture the gripe she thought would make their marriage look normal. She mimicked Sharon's complaint and accused Lloyd of abandoning the family for work even on his day off, asking how she could ever be satisfied if he always put patients first. Lloyd was taken aback to hear the accusation from her and couldn't respond immediately. Yuri, however, was astonished that Yeowar actually seemed eager to spend time with the loser Lloyd. Lloyd dressed up and apologized again to Yeowar, promising they would talk about it when he returned. Code 1399 was a serious incident, though he still don't understand what Yeowar was saying, but it will have to wait. He closed the door and left, apologizing once more. Yeowar felt pleased. This felt like a perfectly normal gripe, and she imagined Yuri now convinced they were a perfectly normal married couple. However, Yuri lingered at the door, suspicious. He said something smelled off. Lloyd's sudden rush felt like a cover. He was certain the man was cheating. Surprising her sister, he suggested to follow him, but Yor protested they couldn't do that. But Yuri asked if she wasn't worried about possible infidelity. In his thoughts, if they caught him in the act, they could have him arrested on the spot. Slightly buzzed from last night, Yor thought this might be the opportunity for an even bigger gripe, and, after a moment's hesitation, she agreed to Yuri's plan to tail Lloyd. Outside, as Lloyd walked briskly down the street, the forger's siblings trailed a short distance behind him. Yuri whispered to his sister to be careful and not get too close so Lloyd wouldn't notice them. In his head, though, he thought how trivial it was to shadow an amateur like him. Yor, on the other hand, felt confident. She was sure she knew perfectly well how not to be seen. Lloyd, however, was already aware of them. He couldn't believe they were actually following him, and that Yor, of all people, had gone along with it. It would be best, he decided, to lose them somewhere at the hospital. Yuri kept giving instructions, telling Yor to close the distance, but not too much, to leave just enough space in case the target suddenly stopped. He said she couldn't stop moving herself, or she'd be spotted. Yor commented that he seemed to know an awful lot about this sort of thing, which made Yuri panic slightly before hastily explaining that he'd only learned it from a cartoon he'd watched with the Chihuahua girl, meaning Anya, the other day. As they walked, Yuri suddenly noticed a man standing in an alleyway, smoking and staring at him. It was his captain, who signaled an emergency summons. Yuri clenched his jaw in frustration. Of all times, it had to happen now. He turned to Yor and apologized, saying he had just remembered a stack of paperwork he'd forgotten to file yesterday, and that he needed to hurry back to the ministry right away. Yor blinked in confusion as he said that she'd have to expose Lloyd's infidelity on her own. She called after him to stop, but he didn't even slow down, disappearing into the distance. When she called out his name, Lloyd, several meters ahead, instinctively turned his head. He wondered what that was about. It looked like urgent SSS business, but he had his own urgent mission to handle. He continued on toward Berlin General Hospital, where Yor followed him quietly and saw him enter the building. She thought to herself that he had simply gone to the hospital, like always. It wasn't some secret meeting place after all, so she stood there, realizing that it wasn't much of a gripe material after all. But then she froze. What was she doing? Wasn't it actually a good thing that there was nothing to complain about? With that, now sober and clear-headed, she decided to head home. When Lloyd noticed from afar that Yor had turned back, he finally relaxed, thinking whatever that strange situation was, it seemed to have resolved itself. Inside the hospital, Lloyd went straight to his office, where Fiona was already waiting. She reported that they had a level 3 emergency. When he asked what had happened, she explained that Y's headquarters in Ostania was in the middle of a mole hunt, and they had finally identified the culprit. But the moment the mole realized he had been discovered, he went underground. During that time, several top-secret documents had been stolen from agency files, including a coded map detailing the operational activities of Y's agents across Ostania. Some of the information contained in those files, Fiona added gravely, was directly tied to Operation Strix. If those documents were to fall into Eastern hands and be decoded, it could compromise the entire mission and cost the lives of everyone involved. The scene then shifted to the headquarters of the State Security Service, where the director addressed his subordinates with a stern tone. He announced that their Division 4 agent, who had been operating undercover in the West, was finally returning home, bringing along some souvenirs for them. However, he added that Western agents were already on the hunt, trying to intercept him before he could make it back. He ordered his men to coordinate closely with Division 4 to ensure the agent's safety the moment he crossed the border. And with a sharp, commanding look, he gave one final instruction. Under no circumstances were they to allow Wise to interfere. The next scene opened with a man sprinting down a narrow street, clutching a briefcase tightly as several armed pursuers chased after him. Gunfire echoed through the alley, forcing him to jump off a wall to avoid the bullets. The man continued his escape through the twisting alleys until he turned a corner. The Wise agents chasing him looked around in confusion. They didn't expect to see him descending from above. With one swift swing, the man smashed his briefcase into the agent's head, dropping him instantly. Another Wise agent aimed his gun, but the fugitive pulled the unconscious body in front of him as a shield, returning fire a split second later. Both agents went down, leaving the man standing alone amidst the chaos. He fired one last shot toward the rear and then bolted down the street. Moments later, the roar of an approaching car caught his attention. Instead of fleeing, he turned to face it, sprinted forward, and vaulted over the speeding vehicle. Landing on its hood, he fired through the windshield, killing the driver. The car spun out of control and crashed violently. The fugitive's identity was soon revealed: Winston Wheeler, a veteran operative of the Westalis Intelligence Communications Division. However, he was also secretly a deep cover agent for Ostania's Intelligence Bureau, a double agent who had been leaking classified information from Westalis to the east. He was believed to be the one behind the recent spy purge that had severely damaged Western operations. In another car, a wise agent grumbled as he drove, furious at what was happening. He complained that headquarters acted so high and mighty, yet they allowed moles to roam freely. Seated in the back were Lloyd and Fiona, listening intently. Lloyd noted that he had once worked with Wheeler on a mission when he was deployed to the east, describing him as an exceptionally skilled agent. He then asked how they were supposed to find him now. Fiona replied that intelligence suggested Wheeler had crossed the border somewhere in the north and was currently within Ostanian territory, but there had been no confirmed sightings since. The driver then added that there was intel suggesting Wheeler planned to meet with the SSS at a hotel in Shellberry. Fiona asked how reliable the information was, and the driver explained that Wheeler wasn't the only mole in this game. They had their own informants embedded in the Eastern bureaus. Still, he warned that the enemy knew Wise would interfere. That, Lloyd said, was probably why the SSS had already called in Yuri Breyer. It was safe to assume, he added, that the SSS had heavily deployed their agents across the area. The driver muttered that keeping calm would be difficult when they were about to step straight into the gates of hell. He suggested they might as well have a drink once they got there. Lloyd, however, remained firm, saying they would do whatever it took to stop Wheeler from handing over that file. Too many Wise agents' lives were on the line. Fiona fell silent for a moment before voicing that maybe they should consider pulling the plug on all active operations in the East, including Operation Strix. They could regroup and restart later. The risk was simply too great. Lloyd dismissed the idea immediately. If they did that, it would take years before they could get close to Desmond again. Their handler's orders were clear: retrieve the stolen files. That was exactly what they would do. Fiona apologized for even suggesting it. The driver said it had been a fun conversation, but it was time to cut the chatter. Ahead of them lay the border into SSS territory. The scene shifted to Shellberry Station, located in northwest Ostania. The platform was crowded with travelers, and among them walked Yuri, his captain, and several SSS agents moving in formation. They glanced toward the opposite platform, where another unit of their men was already in position. One of the female agents spoke up, her voice uneasy as she asked why they had to do all this cloak and dagger business when they were operating in their own country anyway. The whole thing, she said, was making her nervous. Lieutenant Yuri simply shrugged and told her he had no idea, only for another man to answer from the side. He explained that, according to the director, those in power had not officially approved this operation. Yuri's eyes widened in surprise. The man went on, saying that the current administration didn't want to risk anything that could provoke a conflict with Westalis. He assumed they wanted to maintain complete deniability over any act that might ignite tensions, like stealing classified files from the West. He added that they were probably concerned about Ostania's international image as well. To him, it didn't seem like something the director should even be worrying about. Still, the order stood. They were to proceed with the utmost caution and avoid drawing attention to themselves. Their captain reinforced the point. If Wise interfered, and if Twilight were to appear, this might be the best chance they would ever have to catch him. Elsewhere, a car came to a stop on the outskirts of the city. Inside were the Wise agents preparing for the same operation. The driver reviewed their assignments. Red 2 and Red 3, him and Nightfall, would move ahead to coordinate with the blue team and keep surveillance on Wheeler and the file. Red 4 would remain at Point B7 as backup. He reminded them to maintain radio silence as much as possible. Roger that, Red 4 replied. The driver glanced toward Lloyd, adding that it was a dangerous mission, but his role as Red One was clear: to stall the SSS and prevent them from making contact with Wheeler no matter what happened. Lloyd responded calmly, "Roger that." The operation to intercept Winston Wheeler had begun. The scene shifted to the OSD Inn, where Wheeler stood in front of a bathroom mirror, carefully shaving his beard. After cleaning up, he stepped out just as the phone rang. He picked it up, listened to the voice on the other end giving him instructions, and simply replied with a calm "Roger that." Moments later, the scene shifted to the massive Shellberry Hotel. From a building across the street, Wheeler could be seen watching intently through a pair of binoculars. His eyes moved methodically, scanning every corner of the area. The people sitting idly on benches, pedestrians passing by, even those moving in the hotel lobby. Once he had taken in the scene, Wheeler descended the building and began walking toward the streets below, his posture tense but deliberate. His gaze darted subtly across his surroundings, wary of any tales. At the same time, Yuri was seen outside a nearby bookstore, pretending to read a book while discreetly observing the street. Using the reflection on the store's window, he assessed the situation and thought to himself that 3rd Street appeared clear. Wheeler approached the same bookstore, picking up a book of his own. To Yuri's surprise, Wheeler suddenly spoke to him, asking if he's a new recruit. Caught off guard, Yuri turned his head, but Wheeler told him sharply not to move and to act natural. Yuri froze, shocked that Winston Wheeler knew exactly who he was, a member of the SSS. Trying to stay composed, Yuri reasoned internally that this might just be Twilight disguising himself as Wheeler. To confirm, he analyzed the man's details: the green tie with a gemstone tie pin, a unique accessory that gave him away. This was no imposter. This was the real Wheeler. Yuri glanced at the window's reflection to check his captain's position. The captain nodded and began to move. Wheeler, still facing the books, told Yuri to inform his superiors that the hotel had a serious rat problem and that he would be changing locations. He then unfolded a small map, pointed at a new spot, and instructed Yuri to meet him there, the park, in 30 minutes. Back at the Shellberry Hotel, Nightfall sat at the cafe in disguise, calmly sipping her coffee. She frowned slightly, realizing that their target was showing no signs of appearing. Meanwhile, another wise agent monitoring from the hotel lobby grew restless, wondering what had gone wrong. Had Wheeler somehow sensed them? That shouldn't have been possible, he thought. But if it was, their operation would be in jeopardy. Cutting to the park, the tension mounted. Wheeler arrived right on time, where a team of SSS agents was already waiting. The captain greeted him warmly and praised his excellent work. Wheeler smiled faintly, tipping his hat in acknowledgement. Back at the Shellberry Hotel, unease had already set in among the waiting wise agents. One of them cursed under his breath, frustrated that Wheeler had failed to show. He wondered if the intel from their inside contact had been wrong after all. But a number of SSS agents spotted in the area made it clear the meeting was supposed to happen there. Nightfall, sitting quietly nearby, began to suspect that Wheeler might have changed the location before the rendezvous could take place. The scene then shifted to the park near a fountain, where the SSS agents finally came face to face with Wheeler. Their captain approached and extended a hand, ready to receive the documents. He told Wheeler that Wise had already learned about their meeting, so it would be best to hand over the files quickly before things got complicated. But Wheeler didn't move. Instead, he said that before he did anything, he wanted to confirm something first, to make sure they really were agents of the State Security Service. The captain asked what he meant by that. Does he think the man standing before him could be Twilight, the master of disguise? The captain laughed, calling it a good one. Then he turned the question back at him, asking if he could prove that he was really Wheeler. Wheeler said that his green tie and yellow gemstone tie pin were the very signal they had specified. That should be proof enough, shouldn't it? The captain paused, frowning slightly as he turned to one of his subordinates and said, "Yellow." The subordinate nodded quickly. "On it," he replied, stepping aside to relay the signal. Wheeler, however, remained still, his expression unreadable. Cutting to the SSS headquarters, the director sat at his desk when the phone rang. He was told the field team had confirmed the color yellow. He responded with a curt "got it." Meanwhile, in one of the HQ hallways, an agent walked briskly when someone suddenly draped an arm over his shoulder. It was the SSS director himself, greeting him with an almost casual tone, inviting him to join him for lunch at the cafeteria. Jeffrey stiffened, clearly anxious, and tried to decline politely. He explained that he still had documents to file in the records room. But the director's smile faded as he told him he can't let him do that. In fact, he wouldn't be getting anywhere near any files ever again. Jeffrey froze. For the Wheeler operation, he said, they had told every agent the same base signal, a green tie with a gemstone tie pin. And that's all they told them. They never said a word about the color of the gemstone. But they had deliberately added one more small detail for each branch of the communications division, a different color for the gemstone. That way, if any of that information ever leaked, they'd know exactly which branch the traitor came from. Sweat began to form on Jeffrey's temple as realization dawned. The director leaned closer, his voice calm, but cutting, reminding him that the color yellow was assigned to him. Jeffrey's eyes widened in horror. The director's tone turned cold as he stared straight into him and uttered the words that sealed his fate. You're a mole for wise. As for the man posing as Wheeler before the SSS agents, suspicion quickly grew among them. One agent finally voiced what everyone was thinking, asking if the person standing in front of them was actually Twilight. At that moment, the man's demeanor subtly shifted. His eyes darted across the area, analyzing every angle and possible exit. He knew they had seen through him, because they were right. The one standing before them wasn't Wheeler at all, but Lloyd Forger, operating under one of his most dangerous disguises yet. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, thinking to himself that he hadn't gotten enough time to stall them. Hopefully, the few minutes he had bought were enough for Nightfall's team to secure the real Wheeler. The SSS captain smirked and remarked how incredible the impersonation was. He really was as skilled as they say. Raising his gun, he demanded to know what came next. Was Twilight going to drop the disguise for him? His time was up, he declared, finger tightening on the trigger. Before he could fire, something wiggled near Lloyd's foot. A sudden explosion erupted at the fountain, the blast momentarily distracting the SSS agents. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lloyd bolted. A shot rang out, grazing past him, but he was already moving. From under his briefcase, he drew a concealed weapon and returned fire with precise, controlled bursts. The SSS captain hid behind the fountain as he continuously shot at Twilight. However, he dashed toward the trees. Several agents sprinted toward the perimeter, only for one to step on a hidden snare. In an instant, the man was yanked upside down, suspended midair by a rope trap. Shock rippled through the squad. The captain thought they had already checked for traps. He realized his talent for disguise in that department is monstrous too. He ordered his remaining agents to contact all teams and seal off every exit, but warned them to stay alert and watch out for traps. They wouldn't let Twilight get away from them this time. As the search teams fanned out, they suddenly stumbled upon Yuri, bruised and barely conscious on the ground. Alarmed, they rushed to him, asking what Twilight had done. Dazed, Yuri could barely respond. When asked which way he had gone, he raised a trembling hand and pointed weakly toward the east gate. Without hesitation, the SSS agents charged in that direction, leaving him behind. Moments later, the battered Yuri began to move. He straightened his back and stood up, because that wasn't Yuri at all. It was Lloyd, once again flawlessly disguised. On the other side of the operation, Yuri's captain ordered him not to abandon his assigned post. But Yuri insisted, saying he had just heard gunshots coming from that direction. The captain reasoned that if Twilight had gone east, he wouldn't be circling back anymore. Yuri was about to argue when something caught his attention, a footprint on the ground. He froze and glanced down at the sole of his own shoe. According to him, this was his first time stepping into that area, and yet there were already prints that matched his tread pattern. The captain was confused by what Yuri was pointing out. Scanning the area, Yuri's instincts kicked in. He told his captain to radio command immediately. He wasn't entirely sure yet, but based purely on intuition, he believed Twilight was in the sewers. He had spotted what looked like an entrance nearby. Without waiting for approval, Yuri leapt down the opening. His captain followed, shouting for him not to act without orders. Yuri raised a hand, signaling him to stay quiet. He whispered that Twilight wasn't the type to leave such a clear trail unless he was desperate. It means he's panicking, Yuri thought, and so they were close to catching him. The captain hesitated for a moment before deciding to contact reinforcements. He instructed his subordinate that he'd send a backup team to guard the sewer exits. "If you see anything, signal immediately," he ordered. Yuri acknowledged. Then, keeping his senses sharp, he advanced deeper into the tunnel. The air inside was damp and heavy, and the only sounds were the drip of water and Yuri's careful footsteps. He thought to himself that if Twilight made it deeper into the maze-like sewer network beneath the city, there would be no finding him again. They had to catch him now, before he slipped away for good. A surge of frustration rose in him as he ran. If it hadn't been for that Twilight jerk, he could have been enjoying tailing Lloyd Forger alongside his sister. Instead, he was chasing through a sewer. He vowed that Twilight would pay for it, and pay dearly. A sudden gunshot echoed through the tunnel walls. The bullet struck the concrete beside him, his hat flying off from the close call. His eyes darted toward the direction of the shot, and there, half shrouded by the shadows, stood a man pointing a gun at him. It was Twilight, disguised as Yuri. For a brief moment, both men stared at each other. The real Yuri was shocked. Twilight hesitated, realizing he hadn't expected to encounter him there. Yuri, wide-eyed and tense, realized with a rush of adrenaline that he was finally face to face with the infamous Twilight himself. Neither of them spoke. Then, in perfect synchronization, they both fired. The deafening echoes of their shots reverberated through the tunnels. At that same moment, elsewhere, a plate slipped from Yora's hands and shattered. She gasped softly, alarmed that she had broken one of Lloyd's plates. As she bent down to pick up the shards, a sharp sting ran through her finger. She had cut herself on the glass. Frustration welled up in her chest. She blamed Yuri, grumbling that it was all his fault for planting the idea that Lloyd might be cheating. She looked down at the small cut on her bleeding finger and sighed. A thought crossed her mind. She wondered if Lloyd would be coming home late that night. After that, the scene returned to Yuri and Lloyd, where both exchanged gunfire. Yuri struck Lloyd in the right shoulder, while Lloyd's bullet grazed Yuri's finger, causing him to drop his pistol. The weapon fell into the sewer water, and Lloyd's arm weakened instantly from the wound. As Lloyd attempted to escape, Yuri delivered a kick that hit Lloyd's hand, sending his pistol flying. It bounced off the back wall and also fell into the sewer water. The two faced each other in silence, both waiting for the other to make a move. In Lloyd's thoughts, he grew irritated at himself, or rather, at his Twilight self, for hesitating to kill Yuri. Yuri, on the other hand, fixed his gaze on Lloyd. A shiver ran down his spine as he realized how insane the situation was. Twilight truly had the ability to copy anyone's appearance. He noted how the resemblance was perfect, and the sight of it felt deeply unsettling. He muttered inwardly that this was the extent of Twilight's capabilities. But as he stared at him, he wondered why Twilight chose to take on his form, wondering if he was simply that easy to replicate. The thought crossed his mind that Twilight might be someone close to him, someone who had been observing him for a long time. Regardless, he said, it no longer mattered. What mattered now was bringing him in. Yuri readied his fists, shouting for Twilight to surrender and come quietly. He threw a right straight punch, but Lloyd smoothly shifted his stance, countering with a solid right kick to Yuri's torso, a left hook to his face, and another frontal left kick to the body that knocked him down. Yuri wiped the blood from his mouth and muttered that Twilight was tougher than expected, while Lloyd quickly made a temporary bandage for his gunshot wound. Yuri got back into position and told Lloyd to stop resisting and surrender, claiming that the sewer was surrounded, though in truth, only parts of it were being guarded. Lloyd coldly replied that if Yuri didn't want to die down there, he should start running back to the surface. The remark angered Yuri, who charged forward, shouting for him not to talk to him in his own voice. Lloyd removed his belt and used it like a short whip, striking Yuri hard across the chin. The blow made Yuri's eyes roll back as he collapsed to the ground unconscious. Before leaving, Lloyd muttered that Yuri wouldn't be eating any decent meals for a while, though he would live. As he turned away, the sudden metallic clank of movement behind him made his eyes widen. In an instant, Yuri sprang up and swung a metal pipe, but Lloyd managed to block it with his left arm. He retaliated with a left straight kick to Yuri's torso, forcing him backward to create distance. Pain coursed through Lloyd's arm from the blocked strike, and he found it unbelievable that Yuri was still standing. Yuri groaned in pain, but his body refused to give out. He spat blood and stated coldly that Lloyd would be the one who wouldn't be eating any decent meals in his prison cell. Yuri lunged forward again with a punch, which Lloyd dodged with ease. Lloyd countered with a karate chop to the throat, followed by an elbow to the back and a sharp kick to the groin, then stayed ready in case of another counterattack. Despite the beating, Yuri still moved. His arm swung wildly, landing a backhand across Lloyd's cheek. Lloyd clenched his teeth in disbelief, muttering that this had to be a joke. Even after everything he'd thrown at him, Yuri was still forcing himself back on his feet, bloodied but unyielding. He couldn't understand how the man kept getting up again and again. Watching him like that, Lloyd thought to himself that this must be what happens when someone is raised by Yor. Yuri screamed as he charged again, and Lloyd decided that holding back any further was pointless. He kicked the metal pipe upward, caught it midair, and swung it with full force across Yuri's face. The impact knocked Yuri down once more, while he breathed heavily because of exhaustion. Lloyd observed him for a moment to ensure he was down, but Yuri quickly rose again, sending a chill crawling through his spine. Yuri stared at him for a moment, but before long, he finally lost consciousness once more and collapsed to the ground. The strain and exhaustion were evident on Lloyd's face as he breathed heavily, his body tense and trembling. His eyes narrowed darkly as he tightened his grip on the metal pipe. He lifted it, ready to bring it down on the unconscious Yuri, his vision dimming as rage and fatigue clouded his thoughts. Then, in a faint whisper, Yuri's voice broke through the silence as he muttered an apology to Yor. Lloyd froze upon hearing it, lowering the pipe as the anger in his eyes began to fade. Forcing himself to stop, he tossed the metal pipe into the sewer water and turned away, choosing to leave Yuri unconscious and alive rather than finishing him off. In the next scene, the focus shifts to the Shellberry Hotel, where the wise agents, including the mustached agent and Fiona, remained at their respective posts. Both realized that there was still no sign of Wheeler within the initial time frame, prompting them to proceed with Plan 221. The mustached agent entered the men's bathroom, thinking to himself that they had no solid leads from the blue team either, and with no progress so far, they had no choice but to roll the dice. Inwardly, he addressed Wheeler, asking him to do them a favor and to continue watching the hotel area for a while longer. He entered a cubicle, commenting inwardly that things were about to get dicey, but with the disguise Twilight had provided for him, they might actually succeed in luring Wheeler out. The disguise, as it turned out, was that of the SSS agent who was supposed to meet Wheeler and deliver the secret Wise documents. He muttered to himself that walking in that costume was incredibly difficult, and it was hard to see where he was going while he wobbled slightly with every step. After completing the disguise, he called Blue 1 and instructed them to prepare the car. He then ordered Blue 2 through 4 to follow him closely, to which they responded with a firm acknowledgement. He exited through the hotel's back door and cautiously scanned the surroundings. Inwardly, he urged Wheeler to take the bait. Peeking carefully around the corner and seeing that the area was clear, he began walking along the sidewalk. Meanwhile, from the upper floors of the Shellberry Hotel, Winston Wheeler was shown observing the scene below. As he watched, he reflected to himself that he had arrived at the meetup location but never received any signal from Gascoigne. A sense of unease settled in him as he couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone wrong. When he spotted the Wise agent disguised as Gascoigne, he concluded that Wise had beaten them to the location, and even Gascoigne must have realized that he was being followed. He noted how the man was walking away and suspected that he might be changing the meetup location. With an irritated click of his tongue, Wheeler thought that he would need to be extremely careful from this point on. The scene returned to the mustached Wise agent, who continued walking while keenly sensing for any tail behind him. In his mind, he analyzed that Wheeler was probably operating alone, which meant there were limits to how effectively he could tail him solo. He then thought that if he kept making abrupt moves as though trying to shake off his Wise tails, even Wheeler would eventually make a mistake, allowing him to spot him in the crowd. He proceeded with his plan, walking around the area while taking sharp turns and unpredictable routes. But after some time, he fell silent, realizing with growing concern that he still hadn't seen any sign of Wheeler. He began to grow uneasy, his thoughts racing as he considered the possibility that Wheeler might not be tailing him at all. He coughed deliberately, signaling to his team, while wondering if Wheeler might simply be too far away to track him. Irritation flashed across his face as he muttered under his breath that it was now or never. They had to execute the plan. He signaled Blue One to proceed. Suddenly, a car revved loudly and crashed into a sidewalk bollard, creating a commotion. Blue One acted panicked, pretending to be startled by what he had done. The loud crash drew the attention of the surrounding pedestrians, who all turned their heads toward the sound. Observing them closely, the mustached agent explained to himself that everyone naturally reacts to the sound of an accident, but a tail cannot afford to lose sight of their target. Their eyes, he noted, would instinctively flick back toward their quarry almost immediately. He then analyzed that anyone in the crowd who quickly turned away from the crash was either a fellow wise agent or Wheeler himself, probably. However, when he scanned the area, his face tightened in alarm. There was no one. From a higher vantage point, Fiona had been observing the situation carefully, and at this moment, she noticed something within the crowd. She explained to herself that just after a particular man turned his body to look at the car, he froze in place, but his eyes flicked toward the building across the street. She realized that he was tracking the target through the reflection in the windows. She also noted that if his sunglasses had been any darker, she never would have seen his eyes through them. Still, she reasoned that Wheeler probably didn't have the time to acquire a new pair. Locking her gaze on the man, she concluded that it was him. He was Wheeler. Because of her sharp glare, something triggered in Wheeler's instincts. A sense of unease washed over him, as if he had just been discovered. He clicked his tongue in frustration and quickly but subtly turned into a narrow alley. On Fiona's side, she informed her team that she was moving in to apprehend the target, specifying that he was heading west on 51st. She ordered the blue team to back her up, and they immediately responded through the radio with a firm roger. As Wheeler went deeper into the alley, he gradually broke into a run, glancing over his shoulder and quickening his pace. Fiona pursued him closely, determined and relentless. In her thoughts, she declared that he wouldn't escape her, noting that with Twilight single-handedly keeping the SSS occupied, Wheeler had no one left to assist him. She then ordered Red 4 to intercept him on 31st. As Wheeler continued his escape, glancing left and right for any sudden obstacle, Red 4 suddenly pulled up in a car, blocking his path. He stopped abruptly in surprise as Red 4 stepped out of the vehicle and aimed a gun at him. Before Wheeler could react further, Fiona appeared above him, standing on the rooftop with composed authority. She stared down at him and coldly declared that this game of hide-and-seek was over, while calling him by his full name. Wheeler turned toward Fiona, who immediately aimed her gun at him, ordering him to raise his hands and kneel, stating that they were taking back the file he had stolen. Wheeler replied that he had left the file at the hotel and told them to go retrieve it themselves if they wanted it. Fiona remarked that Wheeler was lacking a sense of humor, then instructed him to slowly remove his backpack without using his hands. Meanwhile, the wise agent beside her couldn't help but think in disbelief that she apparently had enough of a sense of humor to criticize someone else's. Wheeler complied and suggested they let him go since he was handing over the bag anyway. Fiona, however, retorted that he wouldn't be foolish enough to hide the file in such an obvious place, then ordered Red 4 to frisk him thoroughly, noting that the document was most likely hidden somewhere on his body or clothing. Red 4 turned Wheeler around, tied his hands, and began searching him. Wheeler tried to start a conversation, complimenting Red 4's work and asking if he enjoyed working deep undercover in the East, but Red 4 coldly told him to save his breath. Wheeler went on, commenting how dull the books and movies in this region were compared to what they had in the West, then asked why they didn't just go home and enjoy their lives instead. Fiona replied that he didn't need to worry about them, and thanks to people like him, life in the East had never been dull. Red 4's eyes widened as he discovered something: the stolen files neatly folded inside Wheeler's wallet. Just as Wheeler was about to speak, asking if they were satisfied and saying that he would be leaving, Fiona suddenly leaped down from the rooftop and landed in front of him, silencing him at once. She told him that she was sure he had already memorized the data, so he would be coming with them. She added that they would slip him a few books inside Westalis prison to keep him from getting bored, and then asked if they had a deal. Red 4 began to lift Wheeler up, but in that instant, Wheeler swiftly grabbed the man's jacket from behind, still with his hands bound. He jumped high, sliding his body through his tied arms while pulling Red 4 over, bringing both his hands and Red 4 to the front in one smooth motion. That sudden move caught Fiona's attention, just as Wheeler locked Red 4 into a tight headlock. With a firm grip, Wheeler demanded Fiona to drop her gun or he would snap Red 4's neck. Fiona replied that they had already accepted that possibility when they entered the East, pointing out that he had no leverage over them. Wheeler realized she wasn't bluffing and commented that he had to admit he liked cold-hearted women. At that moment, the wise agent disguised as Gascoigne arrived and shouted Red 3 in alarm, immediately catching Wheeler's attention. He shoved Red 4 forcefully toward Fiona, startling her, and then quickly grabbed a pocket knife from the floor. As Fiona caught Red 4's body, she opened fire, but Wheeler moved with blinding speed, dodging every shot before leaping over the barrier toward the edge of the canal. When Fiona tried to shoot him from above, she was shocked as Wheeler hurled the pocket knife straight at her, striking the nozzle of her pistol with perfect precision. He gave her a small wave as he cut himself free and remarked that this was their farewell. He then dashed away, then went into a large sewer pipe to hide. Fiona immediately followed, jumping down to the canal walkway while ordering Red 2 to administer first aid to Red 4 and secure the file. She informed him that she would pursue Wheeler and instructed him to send in the blue team for backup, which Red 2 acknowledged without hesitation. As she chased him, Fiona thought to herself that Winston Wheeler was a far stronger agent than she had imagined. She began to doubt whether her strength alone would be enough to take him down, realizing this pursuit was putting her at considerable disadvantage. Cautiously entering the sewer pipe, she first considered that she might be able to coordinate once she met up with Twilight, but quickly dismissed the thought, admitting to herself that even that wasn't certain. As she reflected deeply, she noted that they had already retrieved the file and wasn't even sure if Wheeler had memorized its contents. She quietly reasoned that if she were to retreat now, the danger she faced would surely be much less. However, she then remembered Lloyd, or rather, Twilight's words telling her not to be absurd, which made her gather her resolve once more and refocus on her mission. She began talking to herself, reminding herself of what was at stake in this battle, Twilight's dream of peace between the East and West. She recalled telling Wheeler that they came to this country prepared to die, and reaffirmed that even if it meant the death of Twilight or herself, the mission had to be accomplished. As she imagined herself dying in Twilight's arms and how he would mourn her loss, she convinced herself that it was fine, that she didn't need to be with Twilight forever, and that it would be enough to sacrifice herself for his sake. In her mind, she envisioned Yor finding Lloyd crying and asking him what happened, to which Lloyd, through tears, answered that the woman he loved had just died. Yor then hugged Lloyd tightly to comfort him, telling him how sad that was and that she would take it upon herself to ease his pain, and Lloyd in turn hugged her back even tighter, feeling the warmth and comfort of her embrace. After picturing that scene, Fiona's body began to shake uncontrollably. Overcome with jealousy at the thought, she steadied her heart again, declaring inwardly that she couldn't die here, not now. She had to survive, because she and Twilight needed to be together forever. Her movements suddenly accelerated, every step pounding hard enough to crack the concrete beneath her feet, as she declared that she had to capture Wheeler without getting hurt, ensure Twilight's safety, and above all, when she returned, she needed to convince the handler about the flaws in Operation Strix and submit a new proposal where she herself would play the role of Twilight's wife. She reminded herself that she had to accomplish all of that, and that through the power of love, she could overcome any obstacle. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Lloyd, still in disguise as Yuri. As he traversed the underground sewers, he calculated that if he entered a manhole 1 block away from his current position, he should be able to emerge within the safe zone where the blue team was stationed. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from his left, immediately catching his attention. He realized it was the sound of footsteps and wondered if the SSS had somehow gotten ahead of him. However, he quickly noticed that the footsteps belonged to someone who was being pursued. That led him to wonder whether the SSS had already spotted Nightfall's team. But then another possibility crossed his mind. that it might actually be Wheeler running from Nightfall's group. As he said this to himself, the scene revealed Wheeler indeed running away. Still, he reminded himself not to jump to conclusions, considering that what he was hearing might be completely unrelated to any of this. Moving cautiously, he peeked around the corner, thinking that he needed to be careful. But if this was Wheeler, he couldn't let him escape. He grew suspicious when the footsteps suddenly stopped, wondering if the person was aware of his presence. He also noted that the echoes within these tunnels made it nearly impossible to tell where the sounds were coming from. Even the faint shuffle of his own shoes echoed loudly as he pondered where the source of the noise could be. The area had fallen into complete silence, with only the squeaks of nearby rats audible as he waited for whoever might pass through his position. Suddenly, Wheeler emerged from behind him, wielding a brick. Because Lloyd's attention was focused forward, Wheeler nearly smashed his head with it, but Lloyd managed to dodge just in time. He quickly leapt back several times to create distance, while Wheeler straightened up and brushed off his hands, remarking to himself that the man managed to slip away. Lloyd confirmed in his mind that there was no mistaking it. He was facing Wheeler in the flesh. However, to maintain his disguise, Lloyd acted startled, pretending not to recognize him before quickly realizing who the man was. He then called out, confirming if the man was Winston Wheeler, before telling him to relax, as he was with the SSS. He explained that he was chasing a wise agent down here in the sewers. Though he didn't know exactly what Wheeler was doing there, he said he was glad to have found him. He then informed Wheeler that Captain Gascoigne and the others were waiting for him in the direction he pointed, suggesting they rejoin them together. Wheeler responded by saying that before that, perhaps he should show his ID, just to be sure. Lloyd complied immediately, handing it over. Wheeler looked over the ID, asking what happened to the wise agent he had been chasing. Lloyd replied that securing him took priority. In his mind, Lloyd realized that he was far more exhausted than he had thought, and his arm was already in bad condition. He knew that his only hope of defeating Wheeler was to catch him off guard. The moment Wheeler finished reading the fake ID that labeled him as Lieutenant Yuri Breyer, he suddenly drove a hard kick into Lloyd's stomach, the impact strong enough to completely stop him in his tracks. As he did so, Wheeler coldly asked if that was the face he was wearing this time. Lloyd spat blood from the force of the blow, still reeling in disbelief that Wheeler had seen through his disguise so easily. His knees buckled as he dropped down from the pain, while Wheeler mocked him with a quiet, "Nice try." He then added that before Lloyd silenced them, the man's footsteps had sounded like someone being chased, and that Lloyd should have known better than to lie like that. Wheeler followed up, asking if he was really a wise agent, then commented that it was quite an impressive disguise. He tilted his head slightly and said it almost made him wonder if he was really looking at Twilight himself. He reminded Lloyd that they had once been part of an operation together, though he never got the chance to see his face. Then, with a menacing tone, Wheeler said they might as well take a good look at that illustrious face now. After all, it wouldn't hurt to bring one more prize back for the SSS. Lloyd's eyes narrowed sharply, his expression darkening. Meanwhile, Fiona continued searching through the underground sewers for Wheeler. As she entered another section of the tunnel, the sound of heavy impacts, punches, slams, and scuffles echoed through the concrete walls, instantly catching her attention. She thought to herself that it sounded like a fight coming from that direction. At first, she wondered if the blue team had arrived ahead of her, but she quickly dismissed the idea, then recognized who it was. Before long, she reached the source of the noise and froze at the sight before her. Lloyd was lying face down on the ground, while Wheeler, his own face bloodied, stood over him with a grin. Upon noticing her, Wheeler smirked and said she was the lady from earlier, then casually asked if the man at his feet was her friend. The moment Fiona saw Lloyd's battered state, a shock of raw emotion coursed through her entire body, freezing her in place. Her mind began to tremble violently as she tried to deny what she was seeing, repeating to herself again and again that it was Yuri Breyer, that it wasn't Lloyd, that it couldn't be him. She forced herself to believe it, desperate to suppress the thought clawing its way into her mind. Then Wheeler muttered that they were just getting to the good part, as he slowly began tearing off Lloyd's disguise. The sound of fabric ripping snapped something inside Fiona. She stomped down with tremendous force, her foot cracking the concrete floor, smoke rising from the impact as rats scattered in panic. The shockwave drew Wheeler's full attention. Fiona's eyes widened in an uncontrollable surge of rage. Her body started to tremble, her expression twisting, veins tensing beneath her skin. Every nerve in her body reacted violently to the storm of fury consuming her, as if she were losing her grip on control, her composure shattering under the weight of her emotions. After that, the scene suddenly shifted back to Yuri, who was lying unconscious in another part of the underground sewers. Here, someone was calling out to him by his rank as lieutenant while slapping his face repeatedly to try to wake him up. The person urged him to respond and said he needed to wake up, and soon enough, Yuri regained consciousness and opened his eyes. When he realized that the hand slapping him belonged to a woman, he quickly sat upright and assumed it was Yoor, immediately trying to hug her, startling the woman who had just revived him. Flustered and embarrassed, the woman yelled at him that she wasn't his sister and struck him in the face with a karate chop, prompting another officer, an SSS first lieutenant, to tell her to stop and explain that if Yuri sustained any more injuries, he might actually die. The woman froze in shock, holding her hands to herself as if she'd been violated, while Yuri turned his head in surprise upon seeing his captain nearby. His captain, looking at his beaten state, asked if it was Twilight who did this to him, and how many minutes had passed since the incident. Yuri looked at his wristwatch, uncertain, and replied that he'd probably been unconscious for about 15 minutes, which made his captain click his tongue in frustration, saying that in that amount of time, Twilight could have gotten far away by now. He then ordered Yuri to return to headquarters and get medical treatment, and instructed the woman with them, Chloe, to make sure he got there safely. Chloe immediately saluted and replied that he could count on her. Chloe then helped Yuri walk, and while they made their way through the tunnel, she said that for a moment, she really thought he was dead. Yuri agreed, saying that he'd simply gotten lucky. That moment made him start to think of one question. He wondered why Twilight hadn't killed him. Did Twilight think he was already dead, or perhaps he wasn't even worth killing? Otherwise, he thought, that could only suggest something else. But as he pondered it, he found himself completely confused, questioning what exactly that was supposed to mean. Annoyed, he then cursed Twilight for beating him up while wearing his face. And as he was about to say that once he got out of this sewer, he'd join the captain in hunting him down, Chloe interrupted and told him not to. She pointed out that with how injured he was, he'd only get in the way. After that, the scene shifted back to Fiona and Lloyd's confrontation with Wheeler. Here, Wheeler was slowly tearing off Lloyd's disguise, while Fiona, now seemingly on the brink of madness, had her gun aimed straight at him, finger on the trigger. In response, Wheeler lifted Lloyd's limp body and held him in front of himself as a shield, telling Fiona not to try interfering. He then raised one hand, saying he knew they'd done this before, but he'd repeat his offer. He placed both hands on Lloyd's head, preparing to snap his neck, and said that if she didn't want to watch him kill the man, then she should throw her gun away. Fiona's eyes twitched in fury, her body trembling once again. She forced her wrist to turn away from aiming at Wheeler, then with intense rage, raised her hand higher. Moments later, she hurled the gun violently to the ground and stomped down hard, shattering it instantly. Wheeler paused in surprise at the sight, but soon commented that he'd never seen anyone throw a gun like that before, then sarcastically thanked her for complying. He released Lloyd afterward and remarked that she didn't strike him as the soft type. He suggested that perhaps her reaction was a testament to how precious the life of Mr. A super spy was to Westalis. Or maybe, he added with a taunting tone, it meant that Lloyd had some personal importance to her, which made Fiona's body twitch. While rubbing the blood from his left eye, Wheeler pointed out that Fiona should know that sentimental attachments were unacceptable in this line of work. As this was shown, Yuri was seen emerging from the sewers with Chloe, while the wise agent with the mustache, still disguised as Gascoigne, was running around in the sewer. Wheeler continued speaking, saying that no one ever knew which mission would be their last, hers or Lloyd's. He said one could never know when or if someone might betray them. As a rule, he explained, he trusted no one and invested nothing in anyone. That way, he always had a clear view of everything. He then stepped on Lloyd's back and declared that was what made him strong, and that was also why both Fiona and Lloyd had no hope of ever defeating him. Fiona snapped again after hearing that and could no longer hold back. She dashed toward him with such force that the concrete beneath her feet shattered. Wheeler braced himself, commenting that her move was foolish and asking if all Western spies were this emotional. He then added that this made him question the necessity of stealing all that secret information. Fiona charged forward, tightening her right fist as she prepared to strike, while Wheeler observed her furious charge, remarking that she'd flown into a blind rage and was throwing a straight right, offering his condolences for her poor judgment. He positioned himself defensively, confident he could take her down with a single counterpunch. In an instant, Fiona planted her right foot and swung her right fist, catching Wheeler's full attention as he suddenly realized something was off. He noticed that her step and her swing were far too fast. He thought about sidestepping to evade, but there wasn't enough time, so he decided to raise his left arm to block. He also thought that perhaps Fiona had steel hidden beneath her gloves, but even so, he believed that a strike from such a light body wouldn't penetrate that deeply. However, when Fiona's punch landed on his arm, it struck with tremendous force. The impact shattered through his guard, and the power behind it reached his face despite his attempt to block. Wheeler's eyes widened in shock as he felt the full weight of the blow. When he looked at Fiona's arm, he noticed her bones cracking and snapping, something that left him even more bewildered. The force of her punch broke his blocking arm and still hit his face, but at the same time, Fiona's entire right arm was fractured. Wheeler was thrown off his feet and dragged across the ground, while Fiona stood watching him, showing no pain despite her broken arm, only an expression filled with wrath and hatred. Her eyes remained wide and locked onto him, burning with rage and focus. Struggling to stand, Wheeler was shaken and confused by what had just happened. He tried to force himself up, but couldn't. It was then explained that under normal circumstances, human beings were subconsciously prevented from exerting 100% of their strength by mental inhibitors, because using their full power could cause serious damage to their muscles and bones. However, in Fiona's mind, every one of those mental inhibitors had shattered. She was utterly consumed by fury. She began walking toward Wheeler, who was still struggling to get up, and called him weak, catching his attention. She told him that he was afraid to die, afraid of being betrayed, and incapable of trusting anyone. She said he had no one left to believe in, no one to gaze at, and intently scrutinize. She pointed out that he had already given up on the world, now nothing but an empty man meddling in it for no purpose other than his own amusement. But, she said, she wasn't afraid. She declared that she believed in that man, and that she thought of him, again and again and again, in an endless loop of obsession. Fiona then readied her left arm for another strike and declared that was what made her strong, and that was why Wheeler had no chance of defeating her. Wheeler scoffed and said it was all a load of crap. Immediately after, Fiona threw another powerful punch, which cracked her bones again, but Wheeler managed to dodge. As a follow-up, she spun her body completely and, using 100% of her body's strength, delivered a left spinning kick that landed solidly on the right side of Wheeler's body, breaking his arm and, simultaneously, her own left leg. Wheeler coughed up blood from the impact, his thoughts scrambling. He noticed that Fiona had lost the use of both arms and one leg, and he figured that if he could just put some distance between them, there'd be nothing she could do to attack him. However, before he could even finish his thought, he noticed Fiona doing something unexpected. She dislocated her arm. Then, as she spun again to build momentum, Fiona swung her dislocated left arm into Wheeler's face, gaining extra range and landing a devastating, direct hit. From Fiona's powerful punch, Wheeler was thrown hard against the wall, and the intense look on Fiona's face showed her fury after doing it. Wheeler's face was completely battered afterward, and he eventually lost consciousness. Despite her fractured right leg, Fiona started walking toward him. She stared at him, ready to deliver the final blow, but just as she was about to do it, someone suddenly shouted for her to stop. When she turned around, it turned out Lloyd had regained consciousness, and he told her that there was no need for them to kill Wheeler, nor for her to die trying. She was surprised to see him awake and quickly returned to her normal state. She ran toward him, relieved that he was fine, but when she tried to put weight on her left foot, it suddenly gave out, causing her to fall. Lloyd commented that at least he was in better shape than her, then added that they needed to tie Wheeler up. So, they tied his hands, his body, and even covered his eyes, while Lloyd explained that as dangerous as it was to keep Wheeler alive, he must hold a massive amount of intel. He added that once Wheeler was safely imprisoned, he would become a valuable bargaining piece in the exchange of information, so they should let headquarters make the final call. Fiona remarked that it was hard to believe that someone of that level managed to take down Twilight, to which Lloyd simply remained quiet. Right after that, she suddenly gasped as a realization hit her, thinking to herself to wait a minute. Exactly when did Lloyd regain consciousness? She grew anxious, worrying that Lloyd might have overheard everything she said while she was fighting Wheeler. In a trembling inner voice, she tried to convince herself that it was impossible for Lloyd to have heard it. She reminded herself that he had been unconscious the entire time and should have no memory of anything. It should have been that way. Her face turned completely red from embarrassment at the idea that Lloyd might have heard her words. It crossed her mind that she needed to make sure of it, and if there was even the slightest possibility that Lloyd did hear her, she swore she would kill him herself. But she immediately retracted that thought and grew frustrated. Because of her expression, Lloyd grew concerned, thinking that Fiona was so furious with him that her face had turned red with rage. After giving it some thought, Lloyd said he knew what she wanted to say, that maybe she was right earlier about him losing his edge, which calmed Fiona down, realizing he actually had no idea what she said before. In her thoughts, she agreed with Lloyd that he had lost his edge. Now, she considered him nothing more than a little toy knife with a retractable blade. After that, she asked if his gunshot wound came from Wheeler and pointed out that Wheeler didn't even have a gun. Lloyd answered no and explained that Yuri Breyer had chased him there and they fought. Fiona asked if he finished him off, to which he explained that Yoor's condition for marrying him was that it would put her brother's mind at ease. He then added that if Yoor were to lose him, she would also lose her motivation and Operation Strix would suffer because of it. Fiona looked at him and began thinking to herself that when he referred to her as simply Yoor, that was when she realized she was only going to hear his official explanation. Nevertheless, she admitted that his analysis was correct, and by framing it as necessary for his mission, he made it impossible for her to object. Because of that, she thought to herself that what Twilight did was a dirty move, though she still agreed with what he said and remarked that it made sense. While catching his breath from exhaustion, Lloyd mentioned that the SSS would find them here any minute now. Just as he was about to say that he'd like to get moving as soon as possible, but was too tired, the wise agent with the mustache, disguised as Gascoigne, suddenly arrived, shocking him completely. At first, he didn't realize the man was on their side, but when the agent shouted that this was a hell of a time for a coffee break and urgently told them to get out of there since the topside was crawling with SSS agents, Lloyd felt a wave of relief and muttered thanks to God that he was there. He then told him that Wheeler was pretty heavy, so if possible, he should carry him, and the wise agent agreed. He also popped Fiona's dislocated shoulder back into place, and afterward, they all began to move, Lloyd carrying Fiona while the wise agent visibly struggled to carry Wheeler. Because Lloyd was carrying her, Fiona snapped again and seemed to lose her mind. As her thoughts spiraled in chaos from being carried by Twilight like a bride, she tried to say that she was fine. She explained that her toes and fibula on her right foot were broken, but she could still manage to walk. However, Lloyd told her she must be out of her mind and pointed out that the SSS would catch her in no time if she pushed herself like that. He also warned her that she always pushed herself way too far, to which she noted the irony of Lloyd being the one to say such a thing. The wise agent then commented that she was far too stubborn, and one of these days, it was going to get her killed. Because of that, Fiona finally gave in and said she would gracefully endure this reward, but she asked him to hurry and get them out of there, prompting Lloyd to reply awkwardly that he was already trying to. In her mind, she frantically thought that she would literally die there if Lloyd didn't put her down as soon as possible. She felt her heart was going to explode and that she would actually die in Twilight's arms. In the next scene, they had already exited the underground sewer, moving cautiously as they made their way toward their allies. When they arrived beneath a bridge, Lloyd signaled them to hold position as he checked who was there. After confirming they were allies, they immediately approached, loaded Wheeler into their van while the others stood guard. Later that night, they were traveling back to Ostania, and while inside the van, the mustached wise agent commented that they were lucky to have prevented a full-scale mobilization with checkpoints and such. He also mentioned that those involved had refused to bring in the police from the start, so there must have been a reason they couldn't move overtly in that situation. He added that if their luck continued, they might actually make it all the way back to Berlin. Lloyd then remarked that, at any rate, by capturing Wheeler, they succeeded in protecting the West's intelligence assets in the East. We then see Fiona, now feeling the pain of her injuries as the adrenaline finally wore off. The wise agent agreed, but added that they heard from the blue team that their mole inside the SSS had been taken out. The driver also commented that even after catching Wheeler, they still couldn't get a clean win and added that it was hardly worth the effort. The wise agent sighed afterward and said he'd had enough for today, then told Lloyd that he was getting a drink with him when they got back, which greatly surprised Lloyd. Lloyd anxiously pointed out that it was out of the question. He explained that he came there under the pretext of a work emergency, so if he didn't get home soon, it would look awfully suspicious. The wise agent clicked his tongue in annoyance and said Lloyd was always the family man whenever he wanted to avoid something, to which Lloyd replied that being a family man was literally part of his mission. He then added that especially today, of all days, which made the agent ask if he and his wife were fighting, instantly causing Fiona's face to flush red. Lloyd explained that he didn't know if it could exactly be called a fight, recalling how Yor had acted and how she said she wasn't satisfied with anything about their life together, even mentioning that he abandoned his family for work on his days off. After recalling that, he told them to just say he was having trouble reading Yor's feelings, surprising the wise agent, who remarked that even the lofty Twilight had moments like that. Meanwhile, Fiona started thinking if this was her chance to steal the wife role in Operation Strix. She then said that it sounded like Operation Strix was still in danger, so she would accompany Twilight home to investigate the source of the friction, though in her mind, she planned to escalate it so much that their relationship would never recover. Because of that, Lloyd asked what her problem was and told her she should head to the hospital, which the wise agent agreed with, adding that the only way to help with a marital quarrel was to stay out of it. Fiona, however, silently thought that she had no plans of helping at all. In the next scene, they managed to send Fiona home, while Lloyd was shown walking back toward their apartment. When he arrived in front of the building, he thought to himself that it had been such a long day because it felt like he was coming home for the first time in ages. As he walked up the stairs, he continued thinking that if they hadn't managed to stop Wheeler, he wouldn't be returning there at all. He explained that even going about this mission on a daily basis was like walking a tightrope. He then thought that, for example, right now he needed to figure out how to deal with Yor's incomprehensible grievances, while also imagining how angry she would get once she found out he worked so late. Not long after standing in front of the door, he opened it and said that he was home. Contrary to what he expected, Yor greeted him with a bright, calming smile as he was welcomed home and was told that he must be utterly exhausted after a hard day's work. He stared at her and suddenly felt an overwhelming weakness, causing him to drop to his knees on the floor. He was baffled that all his strength suddenly vanished, while Yor cried out in alarm and said if he was okay. Because of that, he told himself in deep irritation that he truly was losing his edge. He ordered himself to stay alert, since who could know what unfathomable anger might be boiling behind Yor's smile. When Yor looked at him more closely, she grew even more worried and said what had happened to his face. So he explained and quickly made up a story that the emergency at work involved a big pro wrestler who refused to get vaccinated, adding that it had been an extremely rough day. He then asked if Anya was okay, and Anya was shown fast asleep, dreaming about putting fluff on lions. Yor said she was so tired from having so much fun that she conked out as soon as she got home. Yor told him that if he was that tired, he should go to sleep as well, but while he forced himself to stay standing even though he was utterly exhausted, he said that before that he wanted to talk about what happened this morning. He added that he did not get the chance to hear her out then, and he apologized for that. Before he could add that he understood he had upset her because of his many failings, Yor immediately cut him off and said it was not like that and that he, in fact, was not the one who should apologize. She explained that while she was talking with her co-workers, conversations just started up, and she ended up joining in with their complaints to appear more normal. She said she did not intend to make Lloyd worry. Lloyd looked at her expressionlessly, and before long, he felt his body grow heavy and a crushing fatigue washed over him. Moments later, he suddenly collapsed onto the floor, which startled him and worried Yor. Lying there almost like a dried fish, he told himself that he could no longer move, that he had no energy left to act, and not even enough strength to think. Because of this, Yor asked if he was okay and if he wanted her to call an ambulance. He answered no, but said he had a request. He apologized for the burden he would inflict on her and asked if Yor could shoulder his share of the housework for today and tomorrow, which Yor immediately agreed to and said she would be happy to do. She paused to think and then suddenly chuckled, which puzzled Lloyd, so Lloyd asked why she was happy about that. Yor answered that she just thought that perhaps what he truly wanted was not to have gripes, but to actually be able to take care of him and to feel that he relied on her even a little. She added that she knew Lloyd could do almost everything on his own, and when things were hard for him, he tried to spare her from the problems. But, she added, he did not need to be perfect all the time. So when Lloyd actually asked her for help just now, she genuinely felt happy. She then slumped from fatigue and added that she knew she was not the kind of person Lloyd could really rely on. But Lloyd immediately smiled and offered sincere thanks. He said that just hearing Yor say that already made him feel so much better today. But in his thoughts, he told Yor that. But the thing is, he had become more painfully aware of his weaknesses, and when he looked into Wheeler's eyes, he remembered that he lived in a world where only the perfect survived. When he was about to add something about the reason behind what he did, Yuri suddenly arrived and shouted that Yor had to hear what he was going to say, which shocked Yor. And even though he was exhausted, it made Lloyd hurry to stand so he would not be seen as weak. Yor, worried, pointed out that he was injured, and said what was happening to everyone today. Yuri played dumb and offered the excuse that he was preparing a report for tomorrow, but that he made a ton of mistakes, so his supervisor body slammed him. He also asked what Yor meant by everyone, while Lloyd wondered about what he was saying. Yuri squinted while looking at him next, so Lloyd explained that he had a little incident with a pro wrestler at work while thinking that he had created a dummy patient and a full alibi, so even if Yuri looked into it, he should be fine. He then decided to make them some tea, so Yor anxiously told him that he did not need to do that. When he reached up to the cups on the top kitchen shelf, his right arm twitched, which immediately caught Yuri's attention and widened his eyes. He quickly thought that Lloyd's right arm is hurting because of that. He remembered his fight with Twilight and when he managed to shoot him in the right arm, and his hypothesis that the man might be someone close to him and someone who had been observing him for a long time, which gave him an even stronger idea. His eyes sharpened and his whole body throbbed next while thinking that it could not be possible, and in an instant he suddenly ran toward Lloyd, which drew Lloyd's attention. He quickly grabbed Lloyd's right arm and forcibly pulled his long sleeve up. However, when he saw Lloyd's right arm, he found no gunshot wound, which shocked him completely. Yor then said to him in a worried tone what he was doing, and Lloyd wondered about him. So Yuri stammered for a moment, but he managed to make an excuse that Lloyd needed to keep his sleeves rolled up around open flames for safety, which made Yor pleased with him as she remarked how sweet he was. After that, he walked away while still glancing back seriously and thinking that of course Lloyd was not Twilight. Looking back at the incident again, Twilight had also turned into Wheeler and a Western cabinet minister, so he thought that he did not need to be close to a person to copy him, since he was simply that good. Next, Yor began pushing him out of their home while saying that anyway, if he was going to be so worried about Lloyd's health, it was time for him to go since Lloyd was tired. Yuri was left teary-eyed and in disbelief, pleading for Yor not to be like that, but as he thought about it, he realized that since he'd rushed out of the office without even filing his report, he might as well head back to work. After Yor closed their door, he asked Lloyd how about taking a shower and getting some rest, to which Lloyd said she was a lifesaver. After that, Lloyd went to their bathroom to take a shower. As the water poured down on him, he looked at his right arm, and it turned out he had covered it with his disguise to hide his gunshot wound. He commented inwardly that it was a good thing he disguised his injury just to be safe, then wondered if Yuri had really figured out that he was hurt just by watching his arm for a few seconds, and because of that he told himself that he must not underestimate him. When he thought of that, his eyes widened as he realized something, and he said no, because this was exactly what he had been thinking earlier. He explained that the moment a spy allowed a seed of doubt to take root, he was as good as dead. He grew irritated with himself, saying he needed to pull himself together, then slammed his fist into the bathroom wall out of sheer frustration. After finishing his shower, he stepped out, and something immediately drew his attention. He smelled something burning and immediately grew alarmed, thinking that perhaps the seed of doubt within Yuri Breyer had brought him back here. He moved at once while anxiously calling for Yor and thinking that he had to be on his guard. However, instead of the situation he expected, he found Yor in a panic, repeatedly apologizing because he had just thought to iron his shirt for tomorrow, but it caught on fire, which left him utterly speechless. As Yor added that he would put it out, he wore a lifeless expression as if everything had crumbled. After that, he collapsed onto the floor while thinking that this might truly be hopeless, prompting Yor to shout his name in fear and worry. In the next scene, the story shifts to Berlin General Hospital, where Fiona was recovering. She was placed in room 507, and there, Director Gerald Gorey visited her. He dramatically called her my darling and asked if she was okay. He mentioned that people told him she had fallen down the hospital stairs from the 4th floor all the way to the 1st. He then commented that she must be the world's biggest klutz, but that she was still adorable. Fiona told Director Gorey that she was fine and that he could leave now. Because of her cold attitude, Gorey was left speechless, especially since he was the one who had gone through the trouble of securing a private room for her. Fiona expressed her gratitude for that, thanked him, and politely asked him to leave. That left Director Gorey even more deflated, thinking to himself how completely he had been brushed off. Then, a nurse suddenly entered the room and, in a concerned tone, told him that the patient was seriously injured and that he should let her rest. The nurse then began pushing Gorey out of the room. Before leaving, he remembered the reason he came there in the first place, to deliver something he was carrying. He pulled out some papers and said that they were the medical files for the VIP patients assigned to Dr. Forger, telling Fiona to make sure that he received them. Fiona asked why he didn't just hand them to him directly, which made Gorey flustered as he thought about how much he hated dealing with that man. He also thought that delivering the papers gave him an excuse to talk to her. But just as he started to say that Mr. Forger was off duty that day, the nurse pushed him out of the room again, scolding that it was no excuse to bother a patient, and said she would personally see to it that Dr. Forger received the files. Director Gorey tried to plead with Fiona one last time, but moments later, the nurse shut the door in his face. After that, Fiona spoke to the nurse, who turned out to be Sylvia in disguise. Fiona then asked her what exactly she was doing there, referring to her as handler. Sylvia responded by asking if that was any way to talk to a superior who was simply concerned about her welfare. Sylvia then asked whether Fiona had checked for any hidden cameras in the room. Fiona replied that she did and reported that she hadn't found anything. Sylvia then sat beside her while reading through the VIP medical files, remarking that their operations at the hospital seemed to be going well. Fiona, however, told her that if she had no business there, she should leave. That irritated Sylvia, who began giving Fiona noogies while explaining that she was there because she had to fill in for both her and you-know-who, since neither of them could do their jobs. She demanded to know if Fiona had any idea how short-handed they were that day, while Fiona, staying calm, told her that it hurt and asked her to stop or she would call the nurse. Sylvia then added with a light, self-admiring tone that she simply wanted a reason to wear the nurse uniform, which made Fiona tell her to take their infiltration operations a bit more seriously. Sylvia then tossed some doctor files onto Fiona's lap, saying that they were her test results. She informed her that she had broken a lot of bones, but the fractures were clean, and that the muscular damage was less severe than they had feared. Sylvia then added that wasn't that nice, pointing out that she would be discharged soon, and, in her thoughts, added that it meant she could return to work. Fiona's eyes widened as she realized something and began to wonder if all the mountain training she had done for her revenge match against Yor was what kept her from being more seriously injured. Because of that, she internally muttered oof at the irony of the thought, while Sylvia praised her for doing a good job securing Wheeler and said that she knew it had been her duty, no matter how dangerous it was. Sylvia then patted her on the head, catching Fiona off guard, and reminded her not to be too willing to die, saying that as her subordinate, she cherished and cared for her. Fiona blushed slightly at hearing that, but quickly questioned if Sylvia only cherished her because she obediently worked herself to the bone for her, to which Sylvia replied that she didn't deny it. After that, Sylvia stood and told her to keep pushing herself, but not too hard, not even for that man's sake. She added that for now, she should just get some rest and take care, then left the room. Fiona immediately became extremely flustered after hearing that, and with her face turning bright red from embarrassment, she was thrown into complete panic as she realized that their handler might actually be aware of how she felt about Twilight. A loud, chaotic noise then filled her room as if her emotions were bursting out, and upon hearing it, Sylvia thought to herself how absolutely adorable she was. While that was happening, the story shifted to the Forger household. During breakfast, Anya gasped loudly in surprise, saying that her mama's cooking had gotten a little better. Hearing that, Yor cheerfully said that waking up at 5 in the morning and battling the recipe book was all worth it after all. Lloyd, however, told her that she didn't really need to do that, while asking himself why she looked more beat up than he does. Yor replied that it wasn't a problem at all, saying she just wanted him to be able to spend the entire day resting, and that she would make up for messing things up yesterday. Lloyd said that it was a big help, thinking to himself that he needed to heal quickly from all the damage he had taken during his mission yesterday. Anya, after hearing his thoughts, was shocked and couldn't believe that her papa had a spy battle the day before, even wondering in her mind if he had been shot. She then thought to herself that if that was the case, it must mean they wouldn't be going out for an outing today. Lloyd apologized to her and said that he would be resting in his room, while also thinking about having to deal with the mountain of paperwork waiting for him. Yor suggested that they just play at home nicely and quietly for the day. Lloyd then stood up and, on his way to his room to rest and start handling his paperwork, told Anya that if she ever got stuck on her homework, she could feel free to come to him for help. Anya just quietly replied that he should focus on resting instead. After that, Yor joined Anya at the table in the living room, where Anya was drawing different kinds of animals. Yor asked if she had fun at the zoo yesterday, to which Anya excitedly answered that she had so much fun. She added that there were elephants, giraffes, and even hippos. Yor said that was wonderful, then asked if she had already cleaned her backpack. She reminded her to make sure to put her handkerchiefs and such in the laundry, which made Anya suddenly stand up and exclaim that she had totally forgotten. She ran off to grab her backpack and brought it close to Yor. After rummaging through it for a bit, Anya happily pulled out a lion plushie and said that she had captured it at the zoo. Yor commented that it was incredible, and Anya proudly said that she saw a lion for the first time ever, calling it the king of beasts and asking if it wasn't the coolest. She then pointed out that it even looked a bit like her chimera, so she was going to place them side by side. Yor said that was wonderful, and that it would be nice for Mr. Chimera to have a new friend. Hearing this conversation, Bond began to feel jealous. Because of that, he started rubbing his fur intensely, which immediately caught Anya and Yor's attention. As a result of his effort, his fur became fluffier, making him look like a lion, which amazed Anya completely. She then remarked that now Bond was the new king of beasts and that he looked super cool, while Bond acted all fierce like a proud lion. Yor became worried since she had just brushed his fur nicely that morning. Anya told Bond that what he did was amazing, then asked if he could imitate an elephant next. She described that they were the ones with really long noses, which startled Bond, but he reluctantly agreed, even though he wasn't sure how to do it. After a moment, Bond moved his nose and tried his best to stretch it longer, managing to do it slightly, which still impressed Anya. But as he kept straining, he suddenly sneezed, ruining his cool appearance and leaving him looking like a messy, snotty dog, which made Anya and Yor just stare at him in silence. After that, Anya showed Bond a drawing she made of him and asked what if he tried to look like a giraffe next, explaining that they were the ones with long necks. Though it seemed difficult, Bond nodded again. However, as he tried to stretch his neck, Yor told Anya that he couldn't do that and that she wouldn't want Bond to hurt himself. Then, Yor suddenly came up with an idea and suggested that what if they got Bond's neck and legs wet to make them look thinner? Maybe that way, he'd look more like a giraffe. Not long after, they went ahead with the idea, and once they did, it showed us what Bond looked like now, with a noticeably thinner neck and legs. Anya then commented that Bond looked like an alpaca, while Yor, looking worried, apologized to him for making him look silly, adding that she would brush his fur again right away. She immediately did so, and while brushing him, she told Bond that she thought he looked best just the way he was. Bond happily wagged his tail in response. Anya then remarked that Bond seemed really happy, while Yor pointed out that his fur now looked much shinier than when they first took him in. Because of that, Anya eagerly asked Yor to brush her too, mimicking the sound of brushing as she said she also wanted to be shiny. Yor granted her request, using their regular hairbrush, and Anya sat nicely while waiting for her to finish. When it was done, Anya asked if she was shiny now, to which Yor cheerfully agreed, saying that her hair was shiny and silky and that it looked super cute. Just then, Frankie arrived carrying a box and called out to Lloyd, informing him that he had brought everything he asked for. Before he could even start complaining about how Lloyd always treated him like a personal errand boy, Anya approached him and proudly told him to look, saying that she was all shiny and silky, while Bond joined her in showing off his fur. Yor then said that it was nice to see him again. An idea suddenly came to Anya, and she excitedly suggested to Yor that they should fush or brush Frankie's hair too, which confused the both of them. As she imagined what Frankie might look like if they did that, Anya pointed out that if they went through with it, his hair would also become silky and shiny. That alarmed Frankie, who quickly shouted for them to wait and asked what exactly they were planning to do. Yor told Anya that they couldn't do that to Frankie, explaining that without his curly hair, no one would even recognize him. That made Frankie emotional, thinking how harsh that sounded. However, Anya immediately pounced on him and shouted that Operation Shiny Scruffy was now beginning. Frankie yelled in protest, saying like hell it was, and that he would hate it if no one knew who he was anymore. Bond then joined in and playfully tackled Frankie, who cried out in frustration, saying that the dog had betrayed him and that they used to have a bond. In the midst of their chaos, they accidentally broke a vase. Lloyd happened to walk in right at that moment, seeing the mess and all the noise, and just stood there in silence with a tired look on his face, then quietly decided to go back into his room. In the next scene, the story shifts to the boys' dormitory at Eden Academy. Here, Damien was seen preparing for school. His eyes then shifted toward the paper bag placed on his bed, and after a moment, he thought seriously to himself that today, he would finally put an end to something. He explained that it was the finest possible cakes, said to have been originally created by King Willie II as a conciliatory gift to the queen of an enemy nation. Because of the scarcity of the ingredients required for it, the creators only produce it once every several years. It was said to be the most elite tea cakes ever made, intended for the royalty of the world, and their name was Imperial Kari Kari. After that, as he recalled the things Anya had done for him, like preventing him from getting a nitrous bolt and what happened during the hijacking incident, he said that today he would repay his debt to her in full. Afterward, he thought that he wouldn't have to concern himself with Anya or her weird behavior ever again. From now on, he could completely ignore her. As he confidently walked toward their class, he added that he was already so tired of the peasantry casually trying to ingratiate themselves with him. He was certain that with just one bite of this elite dessert, Anya would finally understand and appreciate how much higher his social standing truly was. However, the problem, he noted, was that only Anya and he were the ones who knew about the handkerchief incident. He thought that if word spread that a scion of the Desmond family was saved by a peasant girl, it would be the end of him. Because of that, he said that he needed to find a way to give her the cakes without anyone noticing. In the next scene, at the school entrance, he saw Anya. But instead of appearing cute, in his eyes, Anya looked like an extraordinarily beautiful girl. He blushed upon seeing her and thought to himself that he had found her. Not long after, he tried to approach her, cheering himself on that he could do it. However, he suddenly stopped when he heard Emil call out to him, saying there he was, while Ewan asked why he had left without them that day. Becky also arrived and happily greeted Anya good morning, which Anya cheerfully returned, making Damien even more anxious. In his thoughts, he irritably said that there were too many people getting in his way, and he scolded himself for being such a fool for thinking that his best chance to do this was before class began. Nervously glancing at Emil and Ewan, he asked how they were doing, to which Ewan confusedly replied that they were fine, while Becky, sounding annoyed, told them to stop chatting in the middle of the walkway. Emil then asked what Damien was holding, and Ewan added that they'd be happy to carry it for him, causing Damien to immediately hide it while blushing, shouting that he wasn't holding anything. Emil pointed out that it was obvious he was carrying something, while Ewan asked if it was so valuable that he couldn't even trust them with it. Damien told them not to worry about it, and pointed out that it wasn't even his. In his mind, he panicked, thinking that if they saw him giving those tea cakes to Anya, he'd be in serious trouble. Anya, having read his thoughts with her powers, immediately took notice and curiously asked if the cakes were crunchy. After that, she suddenly asked Damien what he was holding and if it was for her, saying that if so, she graciously accepted it. That completely shocked Damien, making his two friends ask in disbelief if it was really for Anya. Blushing furiously, Damien shouted that of course not, and demanded why the hell he would ever give anything to her, calling her a moron, which Ewan agreed with. After saying that, he ran off shouting for her to stop trying to freeload off him, calling her a beggar. As his two friends followed, Ewan agreed and shouted to Anya that she was nothing but a greedy hyena. This left Anya standing there with her arms stretched out, irritated and confused, while Becky asked what that was all about. The school bell then rang, and after that, the story shifted to their classroom, where their teacher had already started the lesson. Meanwhile, in Damien's mind, he irritably thought about how he was supposed to give those tea cakes to Anya without anyone noticing. He thought that he should just secretly place them inside her locker, but then immediately imagined that if someone caught him doing that, he would look like a pervert. He quickly dismissed the idea, thinking that it was too dangerous. If anyone were to see him secretly opening a girl's locker, it would be the end of his life. In Anya's thoughts, she commented that Damien truly seemed determined to give her those cakes, but she also wondered why it was so important that no one else should know about it. Meanwhile, Damien continued thinking, irritably saying that he needed to find a way to be alone with Anya. Because Anya was skeptical about why that secrecy mattered so much, she began to think that those cakes must be so delicious that they possessed the power to change the entire world. She started drooling at the thought and decided that, for the sake of Plan B and her papa, who was working so hard to preserve world peace, she needed to figure out a way to get those cakes. After that, she called Becky's attention, catching her notice and prompting her to ask what it was. When Anya told her that she needed her help to get some alone time with Damien, Becky immediately blushed, overcome with excitement, and commented on how audacious she was being on a weekday morning like this. Becky then explained that it would be easy and that Anya simply needed to invite him somewhere. She suggested the courtyard since the poinsettias were in full bloom, saying that it would really set the mood, but Anya told her that there was no need for any mood. Afterward, Becky told her to write a note and send it to him. Anya then wrote on a small piece of paper, inviting Damien to meet her in the courtyard during their next break. When she finished writing it, she passed the note to her classmates, having them hand it over to Damien. While that was happening, Becky, feeling all giddy, commented that Anya's heart must be pounding like crazy right now, though Anya simply looked confused and pointed out that it wasn't. When Damien received the note, he looked puzzled, but as he opened it, he was completely stunned. He couldn't read it at all because of Anya's atrocious handwriting. Because of that, Becky told Anya that this running gag was getting a bit old, to which Anya replied that she promised she really did try. Anya then asked if Becky could write the note for her instead, but Becky refused and explained that it was important for her to put her own feelings into it. She added that Anya should write it neatly, letter by letter. Becky then started guiding her as she wrote, telling her to express her feelings, not her strength. But Anya suddenly cried out in pain after stabbing her own finger with the pencil. Becky told her not to lose heart and explained that love and pain always go hand in hand. Afterward, she handed her a thicker pencil, telling her to use that one instead and to write in larger letters to show the strength of her emotions. Once Anya finished her new note, she asked her classmates again to pass it along to Damien. When Damien and his two friends received it, they looked at it with puzzled expressions. What they saw looked more like a threatening or angry letter because of how messy and dark it appeared. In it, Anya had written that they should meet in the courtyard, and that he should come alone, which completely startled Damien and his friends. Emil nervously asked Damien what it was and commented that the note looked cursed, while Ewan said he thought he knew what it meant. He pointed out that Anya was calling him out and that it was clearly a challenge to a duel, to kill or maim him as revenge for calling her a beggar. In Damien's thoughts, he actually found this convenient, realizing that this might be his chance to give her the cakes. Because of that, he agreed to it and informed Anya that he accepted, much to Ewan's confusion. He nodded toward Anya while she looked back at him, and Becky excitedly told Anya that she did it, that she had won him over. The break time bell rang, and Damien immediately moved to head for the place where they were supposed to meet. Before leaving, he told Emil and Ewan that it was supposed to be a mano, so they should stay behind. That surprised Ewan, while Emil pointed out that Anya was a girl, not a mano, and suggested that they team up to teach her a lesson. Because of that, Damien shouted at them that they weren't coming with him, leaving the two boys shocked. Emil turned to Ewan and asked what they should do, to which Ewan replied that their hearts beat as one with Damien's. Emil agreed and added that they would stand ready to avenge him if he were to fall. The two then ran off to follow Damien, and as that happened, Anya told Becky that she couldn't come with her. Becky replied that she knew and that she would never embarrass her like that. However, in her thoughts, Becky said that she couldn't possibly miss a heart-pounding moment of drama like this, so she would watch supportively from a distance, something Anya heard clearly through her telepathy. Because of that, she repeated to Becky that she really couldn't come along. Becky looked confused and told her that she already knew that and wouldn't do such a thing, but when Anya tried warning her again, Becky shouted back that she literally just said she knew. In the next scene, Anya and Damien finally went to the courtyard, where they stood face to face, just as the school gong sounded. On the side, it was shown that Becky was secretly watching them from hiding, along with Emil and Ewan. Because of that, Damien, visibly irritated, asked what that black bell girl was doing there and what happened to their supposed mano. Anya looked confused at the term mano and pointed out that he himself also brought along his flunkies, shocking their friends, who were stunned that they had been spotted. Becky squealed in excitement, thrilled by what she saw, thinking to herself that the two were exchanging violent yet passionate words of love, while Ewan asked if this was a duel through arguing. Annoyed by everything happening around them, Damien told Anya that they needed to go somewhere private where they could actually talk alone and ordered her to follow him. Anya agreed with a serious look on her face. The two suddenly ran off, leaving their friends surprised. Immediately, Emil, Ewan, and Becky began chasing after them. As they ran, Ewan asked what was going on and if the two were moving to a new dueling ground, to which Emil replied that maybe it would turn into a running battle, prompting him to say they had to catch up. Becky, still completely love-struck and unable to contain her excitement, wondered aloud if the two were actually going to elope. As they all ran, Damien was thinking to himself that he would shake off his friends at any cost, while Anya was determined that whatever it takes, she would eat those cakes. On the other hand, Damien's friends were thinking that they would never leave him to fight alone, while Becky, still squealing in delight, thought that this was so amazing. She added that TV romances were fun, but the real thing was absolutely incredible. All of them shouted from the intensity of their pursuit toward what they desired, and before long, Anya and Damien stopped in a hallway, panting from exhaustion. Irritated, Damien complained that those guys just wouldn't give up, while Emil and Ewan wondered when the fighting was supposed to start, and Becky began to wonder when all the lovey-dovey stuff would begin. After that, Damien blamed Anya for everything, saying it was all because she was too slow and calling her stub legs. Anya, annoyed, yelled back that her legs weren't stubby, then pointed out that maybe his eyes were dirty and told him to pop them out and wash them. Damien responded that he had 20/10 vision and could see her ugly face crisp and clear, to which Anya retorted that maybe his brain also needed a good washing. In his thoughts, Damien was seething, wondering why he was working so hard for her benefit again, reminding himself that he wasn't under any obligation to repay debts to a moron like her. Because of that, he suddenly shouted to hell with Anya and that he's done with this, and decided that he would just toss the stupid cakes away, which deeply worried Anya. Emil and Ewan were also shocked and wondered if their boss man was retreating from the enemy, while Becky, concerned, thought that maybe Anya had just been dumped. However, Anya refused to let Damien walk away and shouted for him not to do that. She suddenly wrapped her arms around Damien's arm, telling him that she didn't want him to go, with an inward thought that she didn't want him leaving without giving her the cakes. Damien was completely flustered by what she did, overwhelmed by emotion, causing his face to turn bright red. Becky, who was watching from a distance, squealed even harder at the sight, thinking that Anya did the right thing. She mentally cheered her on, saying that she should never give up, and even if people thought she was clingy, she should just keep on clinging. Meanwhile, on Damien's friend's side, Emil worriedly thought that what Anya did was a coward's move since he believed she had tackled Damien from behind, while Ewan wondered if they should intervene to protect Damien, but then realized they couldn't, as that would make it too many monos. They suddenly heard footsteps approaching from behind, which made the three of them turn around in alarm. As this happened, the scene returned to Anya and Damien. Damien, still confused, demanded to know what she was doing and if she really wanted to fight that badly, telling her to let him go. Anya replied that she didn't want to fight him and just wanted to be his friend, though her true intention was to get the cakes he bought. This made Damien blush even more, and just as he was about to ask why he would ever want to be friends with her, he suddenly noticed that their friends were gone, making him wonder if they had already gone back to class. In front of them, Henderson suddenly appeared. He told them that as punishment, he expected the two of them to report to his office after class, something that surprised both Damien and Anya. He added that if that was clear, they should return to their classroom. The two looked at each other with equally annoyed expressions on their faces. In the next scene, after classes had ended, Anya and Damien went to Henderson's office. There, Henderson instructed them to write written apologies, and after some time, both informed him that they had finished. Then they suddenly heard something coming from the next room, followed by a delicious aroma filling the air. Henderson brought them tea and asked if they would care to join him. Damien respectfully replied yes and thanked him, while Anya was visibly thrilled and salivating in excitement. Afterward, Henderson brought out the sweets he had confiscated and added that they also had some tea cakes that would go perfectly with it, asking if they would like to try them. Damien smiled slightly and said he'd love to, while Anya suddenly shouted in excitement, drooling at the sight of the tea cakes. Henderson placed them on a plate for the three of them to share. When Anya took a bite, she cheerfully said that they were really delicious. Damien commented that this meant they were even now, which Anya happily agreed to, while Henderson asked what exactly they meant by even. Damien replied that he couldn't answer that without sullying the Desmond name. But before he could continue, Anya accidentally blurted out that he hadn't brought his handkerchief, causing Damien to shout at her before she could finish. Henderson then commented that those cakes were quite special, to which Damien explained that his household staff had sent them over. After that, the scene shifted to an earlier point in time when Damien was on the phone with his butler, Jeeves. Jeeves asked if he had received the things he had sent him, to which Damien replied yes and thanked him for it. Jeeves then explained that his mother had gone through a lot of trouble to acquire those cakes, which caught Damien's attention and made him ask in surprise if his mom really did that. Jeeves also mentioned that his mother had expressed her hope that he and the young lady forger would become closer, something that left Damien shocked and embarrassed. Completely flustered, he asked Jeeves how his mom could possibly have known that he was planning to give them to Anya and whether he had said something to her. Jeeves replied that he didn't recall mentioning anything but added that he must say his mother seemed quite pleased about it, causing Damien to fall silent. As Damien recalled that memory, he found himself deep in thought, while Anya continued happily eating the tea cakes. Anya then noticed what Damien was thinking and stopped eating. With a cheerful smile, she told him that now that he had given her the cake, they could finally be good friends, while thinking to herself that she wouldn't lose the battle of friendship schemes to her mama. Damien looked confused and said to wait a second, asking why she had called him out in the first place. He then questioned that if it wasn't to fight, what exactly was the reason she wanted him to come there alone? He then recalled what Anya had said earlier, that she just wanted to be his friend. But now, looking at her in a new light, she seemed prettier, almost enchanting, which made his face turn bright red as he shuddered in flustered panic. Anya, seeing his thoughts, trembled as if she had just seen a ghost. Upon realizing that, Anya said that creeped her out and told him to just forget about being friends, prompting Damien to yell that she couldn't take that back, not before he got to refuse first. Once again, Anya tried to tell Henderson that everything had only happened because Damien forgot to bring his handkerchief, but before she could finish, Damien shouted at her again. Because of that, Henderson scolded both of them, saying that was enough, silencing them completely, and ordered them both to just go home. In the next scene, we shift to Yuri's situation, where he seems out of it while heading toward their office. Even though the traffic light was still red, he ignored it and started crossing the street, causing a man nearby to try to stop him. However, it was already too late. A truck suddenly hit him, sending him flying. A man walking on the sidewalk panicked and shouted to ask if he was okay, but Yuri only groaned a little as if the hit wasn't serious, even though blood was already dripping from his head. Not long after, he arrived at the SSS headquarters. As he went to his locker, his captain saw him and, while changing his clothes, scolded him once again, asking how many times he had to remind him to stop getting hit by trucks. He added that injuries like that never completely heal. Yuri responded, saying he had just been really scattered these past few days. When he opened his locker, it was revealed to be full of photos of Yor. His lieutenant commented that if that was the case, he should get his sister to help him pull himself together. Yuri sighed and explained that, truthfully, he hadn't seen his sister much lately, prompting his lieutenant to ask with concern if something had happened to her or if she had caught some kind of contagious illness. Yuri replied that lately something fell off and went on to explain that the last time he saw her, he was left wondering if he was truly capable of protecting this country. The lieutenant asked him what exactly he meant by that, and followed up by saying that if he no longer had his motivation, then what did he have left? Yuri said that he skipped several grades up to college, was quickly accepted into the foreign ministry, immediately showed exceptional talent at the SSS, and that he was an elite among elites. His lieutenant corrected him, saying that such praise would sound better if it came from someone else. Even so, Yuri added with irritation that that Twilight guy always managed to get the better of him. He said that he thought he had finally caught him, but in the end, all he got was a serious beating. His lieutenant then asked if he was still sulking about that, and commented that he really never lets anything go, telling him to just forget it and move on. Yuri yelled that of course he was sulking over it, saying that it was their one chance to catch him. His lieutenant reminded him that even their director had congratulated him that day, saying that Yuri was the first person ever to land a blow on Twilight. He added that yes, Wise did capture Wheeler, but their agency also managed to catch Wise's mole in return. Both sides lost a valuable source of intel, so it was essentially a draw. However, he added that a few bruises on a relatively new recruit was a small price to pay for the amount of damage he had dealt to Twilight. He continued, saying that now, the entire agency was conducting a large-scale search across Ostania for anyone with a bullet wound on their right arm, all thanks to Yuri. He also mentioned that even if it didn't lead to an arrest, it was still enough to put enormous pressure on West agents. Because of that, Yuri looked down and said that maybe that was true, but even so, he had still lost to a man whose right arm was nearly useless from a bullet wound. After that, he started blaming himself, calling himself weak, which made his lieutenant comment that he's in it deep. Just then, Chloe came running toward them, shouting for the captain's help, saying that she's about to interview a suspect from an anti-government group. And when she added that the man appeared to have a gunshot wound on his right arm, that immediately caught Yuri's attention. They all rushed to the suspect Chloe mentioned, but when they arrived and saw that it was a short, chubby man with a round face, Yuri and his lieutenant just stared silently at him for a moment. After a brief pause, they both turned away and decided to just return to work, saying that they had a busy day ahead, leaving Chloe confused. She asked if they weren't even going to make sure it wasn't Twilight, so Yuri snapped at her to get her eyes checked, while his lieutenant explained that if that man was the same person who had posed as both Yuri and Wheeler, then it was clear that he must know how to use magic, and that they would stand no chance against a wizard. The lieutenant suddenly added that since they were already there, Yuri might as well help out with the interrogation, something that caught him completely off guard, while Chloe commented that she appreciated the extra help. They then began the interrogation, where Yuri started by reading through the suspect's file. The man's name was Bobby Bockel, a member of the anti-establishment group known as the Chicken Circle. He was arrested for systematically wiping his snot on the food displays inside a department store's food court, which left Yuri utterly speechless. After reading that, Yuri asked him if that meant he was an over-the-hill street thug turned activist, and pointed out that people like him only ever cause trouble, to which Bobby scoffed. Bobby asked what a government dog like him could possibly know, and when he started saying that they were fighting for the country against the rich, Yuri cut him off sharply, telling him to shut up. Yuri glared at him with an intense, heavy gaze and explained coldly that people like them weren't lowly pests, so he shouldn't expect anyone to understand his pathetic cries and complaints. He went on to say that Bobby was nothing but a parasite in Ostania, a bloated, noxious tick trying to suck out the lifeblood of their nation. And when there was nothing left to take, he'd just run away while whining about the state of the country he himself helped destroy. He called him a lazy, useless man who, instead of fixing himself, made his own uselessness society's problem. He added that, but all of society's solutions for him just aggravated his persecution complex, driving him to perpetrate on others the same crimes he moaned about being victims of himself. All because abusing people is the only thing that brings any satisfaction to a worthless trash like him. That harsh tirade brought Bobby to tears, and he tearfully asked if Yuri really had to be that cruel, while Chloe, left speechless, quietly commented that that was harsh. Yuri replied firmly that he didn't have time to waste listening to criminals ramble about their moronic ideologies. He then told Bobby to just tell him who ordered him to do what he did. He bombarded him with questions, demanding the name of his leader, how many members were in their circle, and where their base was located, telling him to reveal everything now. But Bobby just shouted back that they wouldn't get anything out of him, calling Yuri a smug jerk. Yuri stood up and slammed his hands on the table in a power pose, asking if Bobby really thought people like him could ever keep their mouths shut through an interrogation. He explained that if any suspect ever broke, it only meant the interrogator hadn't done his job properly. He then asked if Bobby honestly thought his ideologies would hold up once he experienced what a real interrogation was like, adding that such things only existed in books and movies, and that he shouldn't take it as a threat, but as a fact. At that point, Yuri grabbed Bobby by the collar, glaring at him with a cold and terrifying aura, and said that he'd be glad to prove it to him right then and there. After that intense interrogation, they managed to extract crucial information that would help them locate Bobby's comrades. Yuri and Chloe disguised themselves as ordinary civilians, and Yuri told their lieutenant that he figured he might as well check out the address Bobby identified as the Circle's headquarters. Chloe said she'd do the same. Their lieutenant reminded them to call for backup if anything went wrong, especially warning Yuri not to get himself hit by another truck. In the next scene, Yuri and Chloe were shown driving toward the address they had obtained. While on the road, Chloe asked Yuri what was wrong with him lately and why he'd been so moody. Yuri shot back, asking who this Yuri she was talking about, and pointedly reminded her that she should be addressing him as Lieutenant Breyer, her superior officer. Chloe countered that they were out in public and were supposed to be dressed and acting like civilians. Besides, she added, back in college he had been her upperclassman, which should cancel all that out, to which Yuri retorted that that's not how it works. Chloe then said it was obvious he was still upset about losing to Twilight, and that he was now taking his frustration out on their suspects. Yuri immediately yelled in denial, insisting that wasn't the case, and added that he'd long despised weaklings like that man anyway. Chloe replied that not everyone could be strong all the time, saying that even she hadn't graduated college right away, nor had she ever been hit by a truck and walked away like nothing happened, which made Yuri comment that in that case, he hate her too. Chloe smiled and commented that he really never changes. She even remembered that back when he was a 14-year-old brat, he suddenly showed up at college without finishing high school, and added that to this day, he was still that impertinent brat everyone despised. Chloe added that she'd heard he got into government work, but she never imagined he'd end up at the SSS. She said it was probably to be expected, since being a secret policeman despised by the public was surely Yuri's dream job, which made Yuri annoyed enough to tell her he would have her executed. After that, Yuri admitted that back then he had been disgusted with his own weakness, and to be honest, he still was now. He explained that he didn't go to college to make friends or party, but to become stronger, and that it didn't matter to him if everyone hated him. Chloe remarked that now he looked at himself and teased that he was tough as nails these days, which annoyed him, so he asked what she meant. Suddenly, Yuri caught a familiar scent, which instantly put him on high alert. He leaned back deep into his seat, trying to hide as if avoiding something. Chloe, confused by his sudden behavior, wondered what was going on while Yuri focused on identifying the smell and listening to the footsteps of people outside the car. Next, we're shown that among the civilians walking on the sidewalk was Yor, happily heading to a restaurant since it was lunchtime. Yuri let out a sigh of relief once they drove past that street and commented that that was close, while Chloe, completely bewildered, asked if that was really his sister. She couldn't believe that he had been able to smell her from such a distance and from inside the car, calling it the creepiest thing she had ever heard. Yuri shouted that she should have told him they'd be driving past City Hall before they did, so Chloe asked why, suggesting it was because his sister didn't know he was with the SSS. She pointed out it wasn't like they were in uniform, and said if Yor saw him, he could just make something up. When Yuri asked how he would explain his presence, Chloe said it would be easy. Just tell her they were lovers, and that would explain it. But Yuri immediately yelled and called her a moron, insisting he could never do that. When pressed why not, Yuri explained that the woman who would see them was none other than the person who sacrificed her own happiness to raise him, and he couldn't show her himself cavorting with Chloe. Chloe replied that since she had no brothers, she might not fully understand, but if she were Yuri's sister, she'd want him to find his own happiness. Yuri quickly told her she was not his big sister and asked how dare she even suggest it. So Chloe said she never suggested she was, and after an exasperated Yeesh added that Yuri was exhausting to talk to. They then arrived at the Chicken Circle hideout address, and as they stepped out of the car, Yuri commented that that was the scum's base of operations. Chloe, watching the building through binoculars, told him that they should proceed with caution. She suggested they figure out how many there were and how strong they were. When she added that they might need to make this strictly a recon trip, Yuri said he didn't need intel. He pulled out his pistol and said he'd beat down whoever was inside, telling Chloe to watch the back door, which startled her. She yelled that he must be joking and asked if he was insane, but he just ran into the building yelling that it was all for Yor's sake. He kicked the door in, and when one thug asked who he was, Yuri punched him in the face, sending him sprawling. Someone recognized him as SSS, saying he'd picked the wrong group to mess with, while Chloe outside muttered, "Oh boy." We cut to Yuri inside the enemy base, where he named his attacks after his sister, Yor Punch and Yor Kick, easily taking down two goons. He got hit on the head with a bottle and was called a jerk, but he answered with a counter that landed solidly on a chin, the Yor uppercut delivered with full force. He panted afterward, clutching his bleeding head, and wondered how he was having trouble dealing with small fry crooks. He remembered his fight with Twilight and realized that if he wanted to beat him, he had to get stronger. That thought made Yuri pause, wondering what exactly he needed to do and how he could ever be strong enough. As he continued fighting the remaining circle members, using moves he called Yor Senpu Kyaku and Yor Hadaken, he grew more and more frustrated trying to figure out what else he could possibly do. Meanwhile, one enemy quietly stepped out from a room behind him while Yuri was already gasping for air, holding a knife and muttering that the so-called mysterious Yor Fu master would die there. But before the man could strike, Chloe appeared and swiftly grabbed his wrist, twisting it and slamming an elbow into his face, which caught Yuri completely off guard. She followed up with a downward strike to the back of the man's head, knocking him out cold. Yuri then asked if that was all of them, as Chloe slowly walked toward him, only to slap him across the face the moment she got close. He winced and looked at her in confusion, while Chloe seemed just as surprised that her slap actually hurt him, asking if he was serious. She then pointed out that if he had stayed at the back door like he was told, that guy could have stabbed him to death right there. When Yuri irritably started to argue that a little stab wouldn't kill him, Chloe slapped him again to snap him out of it. She told him seriously that he would die. People do die. Even him, making Yuri's eyes widen as the reality of her words sank in. She then asked if his sister was some kind of twisted, evil sister who despised him so much, which made Yuri explode in anger and demand what she was even saying, threatening to really have her executed. But before he could rant further about how his sister was the kindest person in the world, Chloe grabbed him by the collar and said if that was true, then how would a good sister like Yor feel if her little brother died? She told him to listen to himself, always saying he was doing everything for Yor's sake, and called him a self-serving hypocrite, which left Yuri stunned and gasping. Chloe went on, saying that he really was amazing, tough in both heart and body, and that she respected his fortitude. But, she added, that same strength blinded him to so many things, and that he really hadn't changed since college. A short flashback showed how his behavior back then affected him. Chloe continued that he was still that same stubborn brat. She admitted she didn't even know why she was getting so irritated right now, saying that maybe his bad mood was contagious and blamed him for all of it. Yuri looked at her quietly, then finally apologized. Chloe admitted she might have gone too far with her words and apologized too, saying she probably just felt jealous that things always seemed so straightforward for him. With a defeated tone, Yuri then asked what he was supposed to do now, which made Chloe grimace and tell him not to get all morose on her, because that was even more annoying. She pointed out that in their line of work, things would always happen beyond their control, so he needed to get better at taking care of himself. Then she asked him if it was really right that his sister had put aside all her own hopes just to protect the young Yuri Breyer. She acknowledged that since they'd been together for so long, that probably felt normal to him, but reminded him that there were other ways people could support one another. She told him to show Yor that he had grown up enough to protect himself, because if he couldn't even do that, how could he protect anyone else? Yuri then recalled a memory, when Yor once came home covered in bruises yet still smiling, saying she had gathered lots of healthy things for him. At that time, he thought that if she kept living like that, she would end up killing herself, and he decided he needed to become stronger for her sake. He had told Yor then that seeing her get hurt because of him made him sad, to which she had apologized for worrying him. Determined, she had said that from now on, to avoid all the bee stings and bore charges, she'd just have to get faster. Remembering that, Yuri suddenly shouted that that was it. He explained that what he lacked was evasive speed and blocking skills. He admitted that he'd relied too much on his toughness and had neglected those aspects. Chloe agreed that he wasn't wrong, and before she could elaborate, he interrupted her, declaring that he needed to start an intensive focused training to improve his defensive skills, and thanked her, leaving Chloe no choice but to agree. He decided he'd start that very night, and Chloe just told him sure. Later that evening, back at his apartment, Yuri immediately began his training using a bouncy ball tied to his head. He called his drills Yor Dodge and Yor Block, but quickly realized he couldn't use those names because they made it sound like he was pushing Yor away. He smiled to himself, saying he finally remembered how it felt to work hard for his sister's sake. He added that his ribs would probably be throbbing tonight from how intense his training was, and that he could already feel his sister's presence. Then his doorbell suddenly rang. To his shock, Yor herself appeared at the door unannounced, greeting him with a smile and apologizing for dropping by like that. She immediately grew concerned upon seeing his state and asked if he'd gotten hurt again, also noticing the ball attached to his head. Embarrassed, Yuri explained that a co-worker had slapped him, sending him flying about 10 meters away, which made Yor react in shock at how cruel the defense ministry could be. Yuri asked why she was there, and Yor explained that it was weird. During lunch, she felt like he was nearby and had wanted to see him ever since. Hearing that, Yuri was inwardly astonished and proud that his sister could sense his presence like that. Yor then added that she had felt bad about kicking him out last time, even though he was hurt then too, so she brought him some home-cooked food as an apology. Yuri became teary-eyed and deeply moved, thinking to himself that his sister truly was the sweetest and kindest sister in the world. He realized Chloe was right. He couldn't let his sweet sister be unhappy. He couldn't die and leave her alone. So, he decided then and there to improve his eating habits and take better care of himself. He eagerly dug into the food Yor brought, praising it endlessly, saying it was amazing, especially the fish, and calling it fantastic. However, when Yor mentioned that Lloyd had made that particular dish for him, Yuri instantly spat it all out despite how delicious it was. He frantically spat the food back into the container, to which Yor scolded him for wasting good food like that. He apologized, saying she had just caught him off guard, but in his mind, he cursed Lloyd for luring him into such a diabolical trap. He thought that if only Lloyd were actually Twilight, then he'd have a reason to have him executed. Then, a new idea struck him. What if he could find another reason to have Lloyd arrested? As he imagined Yor crying while he arrested Lloyd, he asked himself if that would really make her sad. His eyes widened in realization as he thought, probably not. He couldn't imagine she'd actually be sad about that. He then asked Yor if it was true that she hated Lloyd now, pointing out that she once said she wasn't satisfied with anything about him. Yor flustered and replied that no, that was just a misunderstanding. So Yuri followed up, asking if that meant she loved him, which left Yor stammering in embarrassment. Convinced by her reaction, Yuri concluded that she didn't love Lloyd, which meant she must hate him.